Good evening, and welcome to Pynchon Pals, a podcast about finally reading Thomas Pynchon. My name is Patrick Fiorilli, and I'm joined, as always, by Andrew Tillett.
Hello.
And Duri Long.
Good evening.
Up at the top, we'd like to thank our supporters at patreon.com/PynchonPals, where you can sign up for $5 a month to hear exclusive bonus episodes like our recent watch of the movie King Kong, that's the 1933 one, and our upcoming movie, which we may decide in a few moments on this very podcast. Lucky listeners you are. On tonight's episode, we are discussing episode 3.11, Standing Alone by Itself, and boy, is it a dense one, of Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow, a book we are all reading for the first time. What movie y'all want to watch this month?
What were the options again? You want to run that by us?
Well, we have Die Frau im Mond, for one, a.k.a. Woman in the Moon. This is the silent Fritz Lang movie that was mentioned about a zillion times in the V2 documentaries that we watched for a different Patreon bonus pod.
And at least once in Gravity's Rainbow.
It's about a rocket going to the moon. Came out in 1929. It is, at least in its unabridged cut, like 3 hours long.
That's long.
Features a lot of back and forth of scientists and a high degree of late 1920s technical accuracy about multi-stage rocketry.
What are the other options?
Behind door number 2, we have, suggested by one of our listeners, 1920s The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
I love that movie.
Silent horror film, directed by Robert Weine. This is the one, if you think German expressionist film, this is probably what you're thinking of. The big angular shadows, the sort of like eerie vibes and kind of dark, grotesque themes. And relatedly, we have, also suggested by a listener, The Testament of Dr. Mabuse, 1933 German crime thriller. This one's also directed by Fritz Lang. This is a sequel to a silent movie, but is not itself a silent movie, but is about an evil hypnotist, which sort of seemingly goes right in line with some of the psychological manipulations that have gone on across Gravity's Rainbow thus far.
Sounds relevant.
We also have such features as The Men Who Stare at Goats is on the list about... Andrew, you want to explain what The Men Who Stare at Goats is about?
The Men Who Stare at Goats is a true story about... I guess they're the army. It's like an army special unit that was spun up outside of, like, in the sort of greater Maryland area, and their goal was to use like telekinesis to kill goats, to practice using telekinesis on like other soldiers. So that's very white visitation, if you ask me.
Interesting.
And it's modern. It was like in the I want to say the guy who developed the technique, it was like the 70s or the 80s, and then they're doing it in like the 90s. Like I think the movie takes place with like Desert Storm era.
Yeah, that seems to be right. George Clooney, Ewan McGregor, Jeff Bridges, and Kevin Spacey. 2009 black comedy film.
Been watching a lot of George Clooney movies recently.
Yeah. Not for any Pynchon related reasons, just
for fun.
Just so happens to be that way. Anybody have thoughts?
You really sold me on Frau im Mond, talking about the extended debate over rocketry and design. Given the fact that I'm on vacation one week in August and y'all are on vacation a different week in August, I don't know if a 3-hour movie is best for this situation, but I think it could be a strong September contender.
That's it. Well, we need to keep in mind as well that Coyote versus Acme releases in August. So September's movie could very well be Coyote versus Acme. A little bit more of a lighthearted romp.
That's fair, though. The 3-hour dense rocketry. I'm going to be honest, Andrew, the rocketry back and forth in the silent movie did not sell me, but I would be interested in that movie just because it's been referenced so many times, but maybe not for August.
Could be a good capstone to finish out Gravity's Rainbow, potentially. Like we end where it all began.
Could be.
It's not a bad idea.
One thing I will add. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
I was gonna say the other two German movies both sound really good. And then I'm still not sure where I fall. I think the last time we talked about this, I sort of made the point that The Men Who Stare at Goats is feeling increasingly less relevant because The White Visitation isn't in the book anymore. And I still haven't decided if I think that means we need to watch it ASAP or if it means we can watch it whenever there's a lull.
I think I'm especially intrigued by our evil hypnotist crime film.
I'd be excited by that also because it's also a Fritz Lang?
Yeah, I've heard it both ways. I guess it's probably Long in German, but Fritz Lang often in English.
Anyways, I'd be intrigued by that because it's also one of his movies. I've seen Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Really like that movie, but I'd be down to watch something new.
Yeah. Okay, why don't we do that? I mean, the thing is, like, Fritz Lang, I feel like we could throw a dart like one Jessica Swan like one time at a dartboard filled with Fritz Lang movies and hit on something that is relevant to this book. Like, we could just as easily watch Metropolis about, the sort of urban dystopian city, and the relationship between humanity and technology, and be like, yeah, that's Gravity's Rainbow is hell. But I'm intrigued by this Dr. Mabuse.
Let's do it. All
right. So August's Pynchon movie of the month will be Testament of Dr. Mabuse. Feel free to watch Mabuse the Gambler, which was the silent movie that came before that one, if you want. That one is 154 minutes for part 1 and 114 minutes for part 2. So set aside some time if you want to get the backstory on Dr. Mabuse. But we'll be watching the sequel, The Testament of Dr. Mabuse, for the month of August's Patreon bonus pod. You can go to patreon.com/PynchonPals.
Patrick, why were these silent movies so long? Was that just that these two movies are both Fritz Lang and happen to be very long? Or is this a thing about silent movies that I've never found out?
I mean, there's definitely short silent movies. Caligari is only 70 minutes long. But I guess if it's a silent movie with an intricate plot and lots of dialogue, it just takes a long time to flash all those titles on screen,
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's fair.
So, get ready to get expressionist along with us in the bonus zone over in August. And go listen to us talk about King Kong as well. On to the book, Gravity's Rainbow. The book we're now over the hill on. We've finished Brynschluss. Here we are halfway through the book, arriving at what the companion to Gravity's Rainbow does inform me is in fact the longest sequence in the book.
Patrick, did you want to share the note we received about Brynschluss?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We mentioned on the last episode that the Inconvenience told us we were on Spotify that we were approaching a Brynschluss point. We suspected that it might have something to do with the harrowing sort of sadistic roleplay between Slothrop and Margarita on the set of The Nightmare. But the Inconvenience wrote in again to say, thanks for the shout out. Not shitting you. We asked if the inconvenience was shitting us about there being a Brinchlus point. Not shitting you. Who do you think I am? Katja? Have some taste, the inconvenience. I was referring to the original 760-page edition. At the midpoint of that one, Slothrop, in full Rocket Man attire, goes up one side of an embankment, across a highway, and down the other side. So not Brinchlus so much as the midpoint / peak of a parabola. Winky emoticon.
I do like that. I had not really thought that Slothrop went on his own parabolic journey.
Did we perhaps overthink a couple of things in our analysis of what could Brinchlus possibly be? Maybe. Maybe not.
What's a literary podcast for if not overthinking a little bit?
When the pages are off by a few pages, though, we're going to look for what we can in the text. It's not our fault.
I still like our answer. I still think we achieved a certain crossing over, a piercing of the veil, as it might be.
Maybe Pynchon left a few Brinchlus points for us all to find midway through the book.
I had a great idea earlier today that Brinchlus would make for a really good dog name.
Would it? I don't really see it.
It would. I mean, I think a good dog name is... A lot of things could be a good dog name.
Sit, Brinchlus.
Yeah.
It's just such a mouthful.
Brinchlus heel.
Brinchlus, not on the carpet. That would, I think that would totally work.
All right, y'all want to get into the meat and potatoes here?
Yeah, you want to take a stab at a summary for this very long section?
Yeah, so I'm going to break my summary into 2 points because I imagine I have a loose idea of where the break point might be in our discussion here. So I will read the summary for the first half of the chapter. This is sequence 3.11. Slothrop and Margarita's meet-cute match cuts to the very scene of Alpdrucken they are recreating as it's being watched by Franz Pöckler back in the 1930s. He comes home to Lenny that night, and they conceive Ilse. Presently, he's waiting outside Zwölfkinder, a now abandoned amusement park, for his daughter to meet him. The rest of the chapter proceeds in flashback over the course of the years since Ilse's birth. As we already know, Lenny takes Ilse and abandons Franz, in part, he believes, for her political activism and disagreement over his participation in the burgeoning rocket program. It's Kurt Mondaugen, now a kind of rocket mystic at Peenemünde, who introduces Franz to his one-time estranged colleague from Southwest Africa, Major Weissman, now of the SS. Under Weissman's manipulation, Franz jumps around research and development units, including propulsion and eventually materials, all the while being haunted by fatalistic dreams of the rocket's conception. Enzian, called Weissman's monster, is also present as the Schwarzkommando gradually transform into an independent unit. One day, Franz finds little Ilse waiting for him in the barracks. She tells him she's been temporarily released from her quote-unquote re-education camp where she lives with her mother. The two have a tender reunion and bond over Ilse's dream of flying in a rocket to the moon, but Franz can't bring himself to admit the reality of her and her mother's imprisonment. He dreams of a lecture he once attended given by Professor Dr. Laszlo Jampf on the subject of the chemist Friedrich August Kekulé's discovery of the ring structure of benzene, which Jampf identifies as a great systemic Ouroboros. He wakes to discover with horror that Ilse is gone. End of part 1 of this very long sequence.
This sequence, honestly, I think might have been my favorite sequence of the book so far.
I might agree.
I like it a lot. I think it, for a lot of reasons, reminds me of the Mondaugen chapter in V.
Yeah.
Not least because Mondaugen is in both sections.
Can you believe when Pynchon puts Kurt Mondaugen in a chapter, he's like, I gotta cook with this one.
This
I
is
gotta be on a heater.
Good chapter.
Well, I guess to finish the original thought, Mondaugen's story is probably the part of V that I think about the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's just the thing that sort of drops into my mind day to day a lot. And I feel like this section will probably hold a similar place when I'm like, oh yeah, Gravity's Rainbow. That really long Franz Polker section.
For sure.
But also, we talked about way back in like October when we first met Mondaugen about how it's sort of German for moon eyes. And now he works on the V2 program. Do we think Pynchon was that forethoughtful?
I mean, he worked on the V2 in V, hence why Stencil talks to him in the first place. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the pun has to have been there from the start. We just weren't clued in to the sort of moon fanaticism of the German rocket program.
Interesting. I hadn't remembered that we knew that he worked on the V2.
Otherwise, Herbert Stencil would not give this man the time of day, except that he worked on V.
V. Wow.
I hate Stencil.
Could you, but if Herbert Stencil shows up in any future Thomas Pynchon book, I will lose my mind.
You know, you can't count it out. I feel like as I was reading through this sequence, actually, I think I said this aloud to Patrick. I was like, sometimes I feel like Thomas Pynchon is really just thinking about like 4 key things, and they just keep coming back up. And we can review what those 4 things are as we go into the sequence. But
yeah, one of them, Maxwell's demon, who also shows back up.
That was when I said that. I was like, oh, and we're back to Maxwell's demon. Okay, so we're thinking about a rocket. We're thinking about Maxwell's demon.
I mean, he's one of the stories in Slow Learner is called Entropy. That's just all about entropy. The man has been really obsessed,
fascinated by entropy and plastics.
Yeah. What can you do? No, I think I agree with you, Andrew, that this chapter feels like a real standout. At one point when we were talking about our favorite sections from V back towards the end of that book, I remarked that like the sequence, or even we were talking about like favorite paragraphs, and it was the bit of the laugh of the Strand Wolf in the fog of Mondaugen's story is like what really, it was one of those moments where a book just gave me like full on chills. And I think this chapter has a few sequences that bring about a very similar effect, which is something, to be fair, that at least in my experience, I'm not sure the Crying of Lot 49 quite has. But it's also not quite as interested in sort of like the depths of human depravity.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do feel like there were a few like horror moments in the Crying of Lot 49. I remember at a few points feeling genuinely a little scared.
The men in black suits at the auction in the end.
Children singing.
The children.
Yeah, it definitely like sent some shivers up my spine in that sense, but that's maybe a different type of shiver.
Yeah, it's definitely, a lot of times I think when you're uneasy reading The Crying of Lot 49, but I don't know if any of it's sad in the way that Gravity's Rainbow and V can get sad.
Oedipa sniffling on the telephone, saying like, "Hello, this is Arnold Snarp."
Yeah, this sequence definitely had a lot more gravitas.
Yeah.
I would say also that this sequence, maybe unlike a lot of the other Pynchon we've read, was really moving at a clip. Like, I felt like I was being carried through by the plot in a way that I don't know that I often feel when reading Pynchon, as I am often trying to piece together forward flashes and backward flashes and interjections of different perspectives and reveries. And not that this sequence didn't have any of that, but I do feel like it really like kind of I found it kind of gripping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of this book, these sort of sections, you get like Slothrop's story put together, but over, I don't know, we've been with him for maybe half a dozen 5 to 10 page sections, and here the 140 page section stands out a lot. I mean, I guess Pynchon has a lot to say about Franz Polker and this like period of the rocket development, but doesn't maybe want to make him a main character the way having 5 mini Franz Polker sections jammed in does. Like, it would, if we're like talking about him every week on this podcast, he's instead of one Franz Polker episode.
I think it's interesting, like structurally, what this chapter reminded me a lot of in the book is that first chapter where at least I felt we were introduced kind of to what the White Visitation was. It was in like episode 2 or 3. Like, we've been hearing about the White Visitation, and it's the first time we learn about the Operation Blackwing and the Schwarzkommando film, and we're like introduced to like, okay, the White Visitation is a building where all these people are. And this very much feels similarly like, okay, there's a long section that is going to explain people, their relationships, and the stakes that have developed between them kind of over time. But of course, in this sequence, it's like over a much longer period of time. We're talking years.
Well, and kind of like Mondaugen's story, I almost felt like this could be sort of torn out of Gravity's Rainbow and be a short story all on its own. Right. Not that, I mean, obviously it makes sense in the context of the book, but I felt like it could almost be read as a standalone narrative.
Oh my God. They should make a recut of Thomas Pynchon's Oedipa, but it's just sequences about Kurt Mondaugen. The Kurt Mondaugen cut is just Mondaugen's story, and then it's this. And then, maybe
there's something else. Who's to say?
Maybe he shows up again. What's he doing in, the upper Midwest in 1930?
I was trying to remember.
I guess he's here in 1930, so
I know Yo-Yo Dine showed up in Crying of Lot 49, but we didn't get any explicit Mondaugen.
When is Vineland set? Could Mondaugen still be alive in Vineland helping make bombs?
I mean, it's like Reagan era, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
He
would be alive probably. He'd be like, in his 70s?
Yeah. He'd be like, I guess not quite. Von Braun was kind of younger than most of the other folks, but like, maybe General Dortmunder or whatever his name was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, something like that.
So we begin the chapter with another one of these beautiful kind of cinematic cuts between the action of one sequence leading straight into the action of another sequence, where the sort of scene that Slothrop and Margarita are recreating seamlessly transitions into the scene that Franz is watching on screen, featuring Margarita Erdmann and the original Max Schleppzig.
Yeah, I thought this was yet another example of what I'm coming to find as a theme in this book of sort of films being manifested into reality in some way, or films spurring some action in the real world.
Indeed, which is precisely what Franz Pückler is thinking about at this moment, as he gets so horny watching the film, he immediately must go home to conceive a child.
Which he does.
His, a film made his child, or how does he phrase it?
That's how it happened. A film.
Yeah,
how else? Isn't that what they made of? Isn't that what they made of my child? A film.
Yeah, which we don't know what that means yet.
No, we don't.
Oh my God, Franz Polker's coming back,
and he's at what at this point it seems like kind of an abandoned amusement park called Zwölfkinder,
which means 12 children.
12 children. Interesting.
Consensus seems to be that no one is really sure why it's called 12 children.
Interesting. And it does not really exist. I did look this up to see if there was actually we'll get into what it is later, but
for now he's sitting outside of it and looking at the Hansel and Gretel witch and all these creepy statues and abandoned rides.
Yeah, we get kind of a rundown of some of the different children's tales that I feel like Thomas Pynchon has been pulling on at a few points in this book, which are amusement park rides or statues at this place. And he's waiting for his daughter, Ilse.
And we kind of depart from this frame story for a long time, basically until the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
And even then, the chapter does not end entirely returning to this frame story. We just kind of understand how he got there.
Yeah, there's a couple of like 3 and 4 line chapters, I think, spread through where you sort of recenter yourself back at post-Wars Wolfkinder. But yeah, for the most part, we're not here ever again.
Yeah, it's filled with a bunch of like portentous language, like she must have always been a child on somebody's list. He only avoided thinking about it.
Did you ever go on holiday, does Wolfkinder?
Which leaves him thinking about his wife, Lenny, and her penchant for going out into the protests, into taking to the streets, was something he never really understood, as we know from the sequence we got focalized through her, where she flees to what's his name? Who's our other German? Peter Saxa.
Peter Saxa.
Oh yeah, Peter Saxa. I think in both the Lenny section and this section we do hear about the one time he's convinced to go protest with her, and how he can't really hang. He sort of ducks into a doorway, watches a guy get beat up.
He doesn't just watch a guy get beat up, he dodges out of the way, and some poor old man takes the hit that was aimed at his head.
You're not going to take the hit yourself.
I was going to say that. That's pretty unfortunate, but like he can't help the fact that he ducked.
Yeah, he ducks and someone happens to be behind him. Look, of all the bad things Franz Polker does, this isn't really one of them.
In a book that is all about the sort of like scapegoats and people taking on the punishment of others, it's another one of those things, you know?
Yeah, well, he seems to achieve a lot of wrongdoing by not really acting. Or by dodging in some way or another. So maybe that's the analogy. Which Lenny, he's kind of remembering that Lenny accused him of pretty early on.
Yeah.
That at this time, at the time he's talking to Lenny, was it the German government or like the rising Nazi party?
I think
this is early,
Rising,
right? Wasn't this like
it was still Weimar.
Because he's still in his club. This is like the Rocket Club.
Yeah. So like even early on, Lenny was sort of telling him that like this group of like the kind of like rising Nazi party was sort of using him.
Yeah, they argue a lot about where the money is coming from. Lenny asking, where do you think the army's getting the money? And Polker replying, what does it matter? Money is money.
Is it, Franz? Is it?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Now, we must remember that Lenny is also wrong about a lot of things. We cannot take Lenny for being a paragon of moral virtue.
Yeah.
We must remember that she flees this man into the arms of the guy who just hangs around with actual Nazis constantly.
Yeah, and it's also very anti-Semitic.
But, has a lot of thoughts about bathhouses.
And refresh my memory, is Peter Saxy, did he get killed in one of her protests? Did I make that up?
He is dead. He doesn't get killed in a protest, though, right?
He gets hit by a policeman. I think he is out.
He probably gets killed in a protest then, yeah. Hanging out with Lenny's dangerous.
Yeah. I think hanging out with anyone in this book is dangerous. I don't think there's a single sort of safe person we can point to. It's like if you're around, maybe Slothrop thus far.
Slothrop takes the hit for you, so.
Yeah.
I liked the image that, like, Franz is in the middle of the protest, and he's like, you know where you would be safe in this protest? If you were an ant, just like hiding among the cobblestones, getting trudged on by all the policemen's boots. That would be a nice place to be.
Yeah, I liked the like kind of rethinking of scale. Like if I was just really small.
I'm just a little guy. What if I was just the littlest guy? No one could hurt me. I couldn't hurt anyone.
As far as going along with the flow, she calls him I'm probably cadaver Gehorsamkeit. Talks his zombie-like obedience is what that means.
It's a good word. Take
That's
that
a
one to
good
the
word.
bank.
I feel like it's also a good play on Pynchon's earlier commentary about Germans sort of stringing along combinatorics into really long words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he tries to defend himself, but really he did not obey like a corpse. He was political, up to a point. There were politics enough out at the rocket field. And this is also, I mean, again, not to keep harping on the V2 documentaries we watched, but specifically go watch, if you haven't, that one with the like PBS broadcast from the 70s about like interviewing all of the Nazi rocket higher ups, where basically all of them are talking exactly like this in terms of like, well, you know, we really wanted to go to the moon, but you know, the money had to come from somewhere, and the army was paying, and we didn't want to build weapons for the army, but
and we didn't really know what was going on behind the scenes.
One thing leads to another. Suddenly you're like doing a slide projection for Hitler, and
yeah, Pokla really feels like Thomas Pynchon sort of dive into the psyche of scientist turned Nazi, like not very political scientist turned Nazi.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is drawn from the book V2 written by Walter Dornberger, which is kind of his sort of tell-all explanation of the V2 project.
Dornberger, that's the head guy.
Yeah, the
boss.
From the German army general. Sort of, he paints himself. I mean, this is kind of a through line through this chapter of being like, you know, I was German army and kind of trying to prevent the slow takeover of the rocket program by the SS. But by the time the rockets were in production, the SS was in charge of everything.
The German army does love to say, I was in the army.
You gotta understand. This is how we get introduced to Major Weissman, which will point out. I mentioned this in my, or I guess I later mentioned this in my summary, but he's a major now. When we were first introduced to him, which is later on chronologically, he is only a captain, which is a demotion from major.
Isn't at some point he a lieutenant?
He's a lieutenant.
He's a lieutenant in Africa, right? When he in V. And
he's Lieutenant Weissman in V.
When we first meet him in this book, he's Captain Blacaro.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. When it talks later on about him, I guess there's a rumor. Polker talks about a rumor that he's in charge of a V2 launch squad. And, you know, it does feel like a demotion for him to be out in the field where he's previously been, like project manager.
Yeah.
Help me out briefly. What is the pecking order?
He goes down one rank.
So where does lieutenant fall in there?
Is lower than that.
So it's like lieutenant below
captain,
below major. Thank you.
Yeah, and that these are. It's also kind of confusing because presumably he starts out as German army, but then I was looking this up, like how common was it for German army officers to then sort of become SS officers, and of course it happened. So like some officers stay with the army, some become SS.
Gotcha.
Seems pretty clear Weissman has made that switch.
We get in this first meeting of Weissman this sort of creepy moment where it says, the major's eyes always changed when he looked at Polker, his slightly prissy face to relax into what Polker had noticed in random mirrors and display windows on his own face when he was with Linny, that blank look of who is taking another for granted. So it seems like Weissman has got Polker pegged pretty early, is the kind of guy he is, and we sort of watch Polker through the rest of this section battle internally with how much he thinks Weissman is taking advantage of him.
Yeah. We get the sense that Weissman looks at this man and is like, oh, you want to be an ant. You're a little ant man.
Yeah, you just want to follow. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, this starts the whole sort of, it's oftentimes rendered as a kind of both play acting and in terms of chess, the game that Weissman is playing, which takes us back to the games that he played with Katja and Gottfried in the in Holland later on. And I think also this connection of we encounter Weissman again, and there's a description of like people looking at things through mirrors, which was all over the place the last time we saw Weissman in
that's
Boppel's
a good point.
mansion. And he's got these
got a lot of practice looking in mirrors.
Thick glasses too. It's all very mirror-like.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I don't know if I'm reaching here, but
Reach for the stars.
I'll reach for the stars. Polker sort of sees himself in Weissman's face. And there's this idea that like Weissman's like the capital B bad guy, but Polker progressively throughout this sequence and definitely at the end of the sequence sees himself as very complicit in what has come to pass because of his silence, inaction, going along with things. And I feel like there's something there maybe with the mirrors of people sort of seeing themselves in this really overtly kind of sadistic, bad person. But then you have these maybe like more ordinary or seemingly innocent people seeing their reflections in his face.
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs for Paranoids number 2. The more evil your boss is, the more evil you are.
I've been thinking about that proverb a lot. I've forgotten the other proverbs. That's the only one that stuck with me.
Well, what they hide or you hide, they seek is another one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Polker carries that one as well. We'll get to that.
Where are we?
Polker thinks of himself as an extension of the rocket.
Yeah, the capital R rocket. This ain't your ordinary rocket. We were talking maybe in the last episode about the kind of divinity of the rocket, the mysticism surrounding it for both the Zone Herrero and also for others, including sort of Pilgrim Slothrop at this point. And here again, we get we get a serious mystic in the case of Kurt Mondaugen, but we also get sort of a somewhat more practically minded resistance to the mysticism, but it keeps invading his dreams in Franz's case.
Yeah, and as far as I understood, like Franz keeps sort of like in his dreams dissolving into the rocket.
Yeah.
And even here it describes like once Linny left him, it says temperatures, velocities, pressures, fin and body configurations, stabilities and turbulences began to slip in to replace what Linny had run away from. So his like sort of mind and spirit seems to be kind of dissolving into the rocket. in a mystical sense.
When they compare the whole vibe to being kind of like a monastic order, these are the rocket monks who are there to bring about the great change.
Yeah, and they seem super overworked, so they don't really have much time to have a life outside the rocket. I guess anything that you're working on for like 15 hours a day probably begins to sort of subsume your dreams.
Well, hey, sometimes you're drinking beer with the fellas, and sometimes you're sad and alone in your room with the fellas, and sometimes you're out in the cold and the dark with the fellas.
It seemed like Franz was mostly just sort of sad. Sad man.
What other way to get over a hard breakup than to develop the world's first military-grade rocket?
Yeah. Men, is this a real case of men will do anything except go to therapy? I want to know what engineering colleagues and coworkers at Boeing Pynchon was thinking of when he said they were athletic, brainless men without vision, without imagination. This is another exciting chapter for Thomas Pynchon shit-talking engineers for 40 plus pages in a variety of creative ways.
Can we recall, just because I didn't get a chance to reread it, and I don't remember 100% why Lenny left Franz? Was she just bored with him, or did he do something egregious?
It's his, one of the things she says, I think it's his, I might butcher my remembering of this German word, but it's like his Bürgerlichkeit, his like middle classness that, she's the revolutionary, and this guy kind of just wants to have like a nice Sunday, like his father did before him, where, he gets his paycheck and has a house and has a wife and has kids. And they also disagree about what a limit is in mathematics, or like approaching zero, where he's like, babe, it just approaches zero. And she's like, but wouldn't it be so sexy if it hit zero? Something like that.
That's also how I remember it. It's sort of being an issue of her radicalness versus his not radicalness.
Well, it's interesting. We had the commentary earlier on from Chicherin that, like, had we been born in any other circumstance, like me and Slothrop could have been friends. And I feel like this is kind of like, had Franz Pokler been born at a different time, he just would have been an ordinary guy, not sort of a rocket developer for the Nazis.
Wasn't he only like happens upon Mondaugen in the woods? Like, wasn't he like being a sad sack and taking a walk in the park when he finds Mondaugen to begin with? Like, he was just working an even more like run of the mill job.
Well, and he got like laid off or something, and that's why he ended up in this position.
He didn't have a job.
Yeah, he got laid off and then blames the Jewishness of his boss for his being laid off.
Well, maybe he still would have been a Nazi in another time then.
Yeah.
He might not have worked on a rocket.
Yeah, no, I think, that's the other thing that comes up again and again throughout this is like, we're reminded several times that he is not, like, he's kind of lower middle class. Like, he is not mannered like some of the people around him. Specifically, he talks about, like, Prussian royalty, Werner von Braun, and like, he ain't that. He kind of is a little bit more of the, work a day. He thinks of this as a day job, which is also the kind of thing that I think frustrates Lenny, is it seems that he may also have a little bit of a lack of ambition, politically and otherwise.
Thanks for that quick review.
It's a complicated book.
It's been a while, like several hundred pages.
This book must be so juicy on a second read.
Oh, Oh, yeah.
There's this section right after about sort of what it's like in startup, at the startup company that is the V2 rocket program, where they're all sort of getting their hands dirty, working on each other's products. Everyone's redesigning everything.
I know they
and
got an open floor plan.
You know they got an open floor plan. They have unlimited PTO. And I this reminded me a lot of that dweeb from The Crying of Lot 49 who is opining about having to work on teams and not being able to just be a solo inventor, and is like, buddy, that ain't how it's done. It's the 1900s. The things solo inventors can invent or have already been invented.
I also thought of him, especially when they said no one could really claim credit 100% for any idea. It was corporate intelligence at work.
Yeah, what do you think? You're Friedrich August Kekulé? You're going to have a vision of the serpent that reveals benzene to you?
Patrick, it's a collective dream.
That's true, yeah. Even he.
They're all dreaming about the rocket. Kurt Mondaugen's probably like whipping up some sort of like mystic potion, lulling everyone into sleep and hypnotizing them to dream about the rocket together.
Imipol XG?
Mm.
Oh, that's Onarine. We already know what Onarine is.
Oh, yeah.
This is established. This line, they were all equally at the rocket's mercy, reminds me of our pals Ned Pointsman and Roger Mexico's conversations.
Sure.
Yeah.
I miss them. I miss one of them.
Can we talk a little bit about Mondaugen's journey?
Yeah.
So we last left Mondaugen, as the reader is reminded of here, in case you didn't read V. We are in some number of pages. I don't know.
It's this sequence.
Okay.
It's like here, and we get the sort of like précis version of Mondaugen's story. We get a different version of Mondaugen's story. This just isn't Stencil's version. That's the difference.
Yeah. Although it seems like Stencil's version wasn't like wildly inaccurate, which is interesting. But where was I going with that? Okay, so we last left Mondaugen sort of riding off into the desert with what we now know were the sort of like Herero Aardvark people. And we find out in Gravity's Rainbow that he then like proceeded to live with them for a period of time and like really connected with them.
Like a certain gaucho we've recently encountered.
But then like comes back, I guess, yeah, not unlike that gaucho.
Martin Fierro.
Now that you mention that, then like comes back to the Nazi party, despite like when he left Foppel's mansion, he was really fed up with that ilk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then kind of boomerangs right back to participating. So I don't know. Like, I guess I just wonder what happened there.
Well, some of the conversations he has at Foppel's mansion, in addition to talking to Foppel about the sort of Herero genocide that Foppel participated in, Von Trotha and all of that, the other conversations he has, including with Lieutenant Weissman, actually, this is what Lieutenant Weissman first talks to him about, is like, don't you know anything about like Mussolini and Fiume? And he's like, Weissman is all into sort of proto-fascism fascism writ large, like even back at Foppel's mansion. And it's
Mondaugen wasn't really clued into that at the time.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. He's giving kind of a vibe of kind of like white guy who goes on like a journey to find himself and like lives with the monks in India or something, and then comes back and is like kind of culturally appropriative.
Oh man, am I glad you gave me that segue? So this bit about, so besides Mondaugen, there's also Faringer here, who has taken up the Zen bow and is talking all about how, you have to surrender yourself to the trajectory instead of like actively aiming. You just kind of are carried along by the flow of the bow, and kind of like this Zen Buddhist meditation on the rocket. This is in large part taken from Zen in the Art of Archery, published originally 1948 by Eugen Herrigel, who allegedly went to Japan in the 1920s and like studied deeply under the Zen masters of Kyudo, the traditional Japanese archery form, and then wrote a book about it and like his understanding of Zen. But that, as I understand it, occasionally intersected with his membership in the Nazi Party and his Nazi ideology. Regardless, it would seem that he was in Japan for like a few years, never learned Japanese. The main correspondent he had in Zen teachings, like, may have not really been a Zen master per se, but like did know a thing or two about the bow, and like he maybe studied archery for like a little while. But this book was like very popular when he wrote it and like came back to Germany. So I think you were exactly right that this is kind of Mondaugen's vibe, and it is not just his vibe, it is the vibe of several people at this this rocket development site.
Yeah, the more we describe this, actually, the more it does indeed feel like a Silicon Valley startup.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of guys hanging out in their garage, and then they start taking venture capital, and now they're
getting into like meditation,
answering questions in front of Congress about what they did and what they knew when.
We should name our rocket program off of something from Lord of the Rings. That would be sick. Oh, Thomas. I was also thinking of not just this. This sounds to me like the other best-selling book, The Inner Game of Tennis, all about how you have to let your body play tennis rather than rationalizing it. Many intersections with Zen Kyudo.
You know what I thought of was the scene we just saw in the Odyssey, where Odysseus has to surrender to the ocean rather than exerting his will over it.
And then he shoots that bow.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of this book is about sort of surrendering to the motion, free will, the lack thereof, free will versus statistics, I guess.
Do y'all know much about triodes and cathode, anode, grid situations?
I know about your cathode and your anode. I had to look up triode.
I just kind of rolled with it.
I don't think in modern tech, unless you're like an audiophile, you're using triodes very much in 2026. But it made sense when I read the Wikipedia page.
Okay.
I just assumed we were talking about electronics.
It's an amplification device.
Yeah, that's what I got. It like amplifies signals. But you know who this reminded me of, speaking of mystics and Thomas Pynchon books? This is that type of shit that Mucho Mas is on at the end of Crying of Lot 49, where he's like, I can hear the frequencies, man. Like, if I listen to a piece of music, I know about the room it was recorded in. It's all just one frequency, and you can tune yourself to it. And of course, he's also like a radio DJ who is actually broadcasting an electronic version of his voice into the ether.
It's a really good pull, Patrick.
I'm always thinking of Mucho Mas.
I was thinking about the sine wave of history that we came across a lot in V. The idea that we live lives that are waveforms.
So anyways, you were saying that Thomas Pynchon has 4 ideas that he
Yep.
likes?
I'm really excited to see what's our next book?
Vineland.
Vineland.
Yeah.
If Vineland like jumps us to a whole new space, or if we're still kicking on some of these same ideas.
I think it's a little bit different. I think these first 3 are bunched together. Surely there's less Nazi stuff in Vineland.
I
But
don't
is
know.
there
Although
still
we watched
entropy?
It is the Reagan
movie. There's still a lot
administration.
we watched the movie, so I guess there's still a lot of white supremacy, but maybe it's more generic and less branded.
To be honest, I'm excited to rewatch that movie, knowing more about Thomas Pynchon.
Mhm.
I might develop a new appreciation for it.
Wait till you rewatch Inherent Vice. You're gonna be like, this is the
Oh.
greatest movie I've ever seen.
That's what I was thinking about, actually. I was not thinking about One Battle After Another. I liked that movie. I was thinking about Inherent Vice.
Yeah.
We'll see if I...
That is not our next one. We got to get through several. There's also Mason and Dixon comes after Vineland, and surely
Mason
there
and
won't
Dixon,
be Nazis in that one.
woo.
I could just rewatch Inherent Vice sometime. I don't have to wait till we read the book.
No, we must wait.
I've already watched it.
No.
No spoilers.
Should we talk about Enzian? Enzian's here.
Yeah, Indian.
He gets name dropped.
He is Weissman's monster. Very Frankensteinish.
They say probably less out of racism than at the picture the two of them made. Enzian towering a foot over Weissman.
Probably less out of racism.
Yeah, I didn't buy that 100%.
I did like, is this, we get the first physical description of Weissman Blicaro.
Yeah, it wasn't what I pictured.
No.
No, I didn't. I feel like after all the Bocaro stuff, I expected him to be like evil sexy, not evil ugly.
Yeah, me too. Like, I thought he'd be like sort of tall and large and handsome.
Is that just your preconditioning for what sort of sadomasochistic Nazis, like, is this pop culture telling us that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about who I was picturing.
I mean, when you picture a stereotypical Nazi, you think of like a tall blonde hair guy, not your Weissmans and your like Adolf Hitlers who are short and, I don't know, not tall and handsome.
But what this reminds me of, I mean, this is basically just a description of what's his name from Raiders of the Lost Ark. The
That's a good
SS
point.
guy in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, it is effectively a sort of balding, scholarly, short, thick eyeglasses.
And we
Like,
were
that
we were picturing Indiana Jones this whole time.
It's a bold choice to wait 300 pages between introducing a character and describing what he looks like.
I guess it makes clear that the power he wields is not sort of physical prowess, but sort of mental manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess a guy is scarier when he's not like, if he's not like physically imposing, then he's like evil and smart and like tactical, and that is a different kind of scary, but perhaps like a more menacing one.
Yeah, I can't remember if we get a physical description of Weissman in V, but maybe I'll go back and look at that at some
I
point.
think maybe part of the reason I thought he was tall and handsome was because he was with Vera in V.
That's a good
Elegant
point.
Vera.
Vera's a baddie.
Yeah, I just
assume.
like thought they were a handsome couple back in the day, but maybe not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think this also intersects with, like, we've talked a little bit about, like, we know across several books at this point that Weissman carries across this threshold of, like, masculine and feminine. He, like, cross-dresses in both of the books that we've read. That's, like, all part of the kind of game playing that he is doing with Katja, so... lots to chew on here. I'm sure we'll get more Weissman before this book is over.
I feel fairly confident. Seems like he's implicated in some things that are pretty central to unraveling this book.
Meanwhile, at Peenemünde, they were invading gravity itself. Oh, what did you post, Andrew? Do you want to describe what you just put in our group chat for the class? Explain yourself.
Yeah, sorry. In the in our Discord chat, I posted the mayor of Townsville from the Powerpuff Girls sitting next to and sort of snuggling up to Miss Cerebellum, and captioned it Vera and Weissman.
I think that's accurate.
So it would seem. So it would seem.
Sorry, back to overtaking
Peenemünde.
the Peenemünde Island and doing paving work or whatever they were up to, erecting electrical wires.
Yeah.
I was happy that I once again had the kind of backstory that we dug into about the rocket construction. I feel like this chapter was maybe a lot easier for me to follow as a result of that.
Yeah. Every day I become more and more glad I watched those V2 documentaries and I read V by Thomas Pynchon. I think this gig would be much harder if we didn't have those to fall back on.
I mean, Pynchon kindly provided a little summary of Mondaugen's story 400 some pages into the book in case you hadn't read it yourself.
Yeah, he neglected to mention the buxom sadomasochistic 16-year-old who appears in that chapter, but
Hedwig?
yeah.
Maybe that was just a stencilism.
Did Stencil just invent that? He's like, you know what would really make this story sing?
A Hedwig.
Yeah, Weissman wasn't ever in a dress in real life. Just gets put in it by Stencil.
There was no sort of like cosmic planetarium run by enslaved man on a treadmill.
I could see Stencil throwing in a few embellishments.
Yeah.
Look, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
A good motto.
The epigraph of V. Okay, where were we? Lots of descriptions about Peenemünde.
Yeah, general construction. How it got really rainy and Oakland gets sad again.
Yeah, he imagines himself as Lot's wife, turning into salt.
What disaster had he dared to look back on? He knew.
He knew. We know. I think. Still dwelling on Lenny.
Yeah, it seemed like he really loved Lenny.
He imagines your classic, like, wouldn't it be nice if I ran into her one day and I had two beauties, one on each arm? The ironic thing is that Lenny is hanging out at these parties right now as he is thinking this in the room with the Nazi generals and brass and industrialists.
It's so sad that he thinks like he's in his comeuppance and like Lenny's gonna see him and she's actually hanging out with all his betters.
Yet Lieutenant Weissman is like at the seances. Like, Lieutenant Weissman is looking at Lenny in the room.
Okay, so wait a minute. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here.
Okay.
But were Lenny and Ilse ever imprisoned?
It's a great question.
I could see them.
They're in the type of people who, like, they did imprison communists in camps. I don't know if they would have... I don't know the specifics on if they would have put like the child of a communist in a camp, but
I mean, it does seem like
Lenny probably.
Yeah,
I would totally believe Lenny was in a sort of re-education to concentration camp somewhere on that spectrum.
I would too, but like, wouldn't her association with Peter Saxa like?
But Peter Saxa gets got.
Yeah, Peter Saxa is dead. There's no.
So I'm
Nothing
what
to go back to.
So Weissman is at these seances with Lenny and before Hitler like fully comes into power.
This is still 1937.
Yeah.
So like Hitler is in power.
Okay.
Because the seances have people with like Nazi pins and
But it's not like we're not in full throes.
Yeah, we're not like in the Third Reich quite yet. The Nazis, just like they're members of a political party, like a fledgling political party. And like Weissman is still part of the army here, I guess. The SS doesn't exist either.
Here it is. So Carol Eventer, this is, I flip back to page 155. I can't believe I found this. But Carol Eventer from The White Visitation is like reaching back to Peter Sachs's seance. And here are some people who are in the room. They all stood watching him in ragged rows resembling athletic formations. Vimpa, the IG man, so guy who knows Chicherin, who happened to be holding the Hierophant keying on Sargner, a civilian attached general staff, flanked by Lieutenant Weissman, recently back from Southwest Africa, and the Herero aide he'd brought with him, staring at them all everything, while behind them ladies moved in a sibilant weave, sequins and high albedo stockings aflash, etc., etc. And so I presumably that is happening before this if Weissman is recently back from
for sure.
Southwest Africa.
And he hasn't been promoted to being major yet.
Correct. He's still a lieutenant.
Quick correction.
Yeah.
For me, the SS did exist in the 30s, although it was still just like a Nazi party, paramilitary. So Weissman probably is still part of the army here.
Yeah. So yeah, at some point, I mean, that could also be before Lenny. Lenny is not in that scene. Lenny comes in later when Peter Sachs is still having these parties and they resurrect Walter Rathenau and all of that. But I think it is quite possible that like one of the reasons Lenny might run to Peter is because Peter is well connected and can kind of like keep her a little bit more safe.
Okay.
But then Peter dies. The government, the police kill Peter, and then who knows what happens to Lenny. And
okay,
Ilsa.
so it is fair. It's plausible that she very well could have been imprisoned. Okay, I just wanted to fact check that real quick.
Yeah, I believe that's right. Good. Someone should diagram this book. I'm sure someone has, but
yeah, I really wanted to go back and reread that section, but I didn't have time before our recording. So hopefully this live recap is helpful for our listeners.
Yeah. I like to think we're helpful.
I like to think so. I like to think that my confusion, someone else is having the same confusion.
You're almost certainly not the first person to be confused about any given thing in this book.
For my benefit, yeah, this happened on page 155 and we're now on page 411. So it's been a minute.
Yep. Pokler still dreaming about the rocket, carrying a design not in but on his head. That's more to your sort of like becoming the rocket, Duri.
Yeah, this is where he dreams of a drifting away, some assumption of Pokler into the calculations, drawings, graphs, and even what raw hardware there was. Each time, as soon as it happened, he would panic and draw back into the redoubt of waking Pokler. So like when he dreams, he sort of begins to dissolve into the rocket.
Mm-hmm. The zero shows up again. It's between two desires, personal identity and impersonal salvation. I quite like this bit where Pynchon is like, much like some gamblers will just like feel when the odds are right on their skin, and a engineer will be like, yeah, that's feasible. That sounds right.
Once we hit this number,
we're gonna crack it.
Presumably this is around the time Enzian is giving that quote about like Venturi chamber pressures that we get at the beginning of the Enzian thing, where he's like, Just do what the rocket says to do. Quit doing all this math.
Yeah.
Got to listen to the rocket.
Surrender.
I liked the description that like all the engineers kept getting caught up in making excessively complicated designs. So they kept making these sort of like Rube Goldberg machines, but you couldn't actually implement it because none of the, like, there was no way all of those parts would work properly if it was actually executed in the real world.
It also reminded me of Ned Pointsman's theory of bureaucracy. Sort of a bunch of moving parts, but if you just simplify it to everyone's base desires and you just get all of the parts sort of doing the one thing they should be doing.
It also feels kind of like the combinatorics, like, what's his name? The depraved old guy.
Fopple?
Nope. Koch's
Weissman?
Oh,
dude.
Pudding.
Oh,
Pudding.
Pudding.
Thank you.
Pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pudding's like sort of combinatorial theory of politics,
sure,
where
yeah.
like, yeah, he could solve the problem, but it's going to take him like longer than it will take for history just to happen. And I feel like this is, you can sort of combinatorics your way to a working rocket, but it's not actually going to work because that many parts don't function together properly in the real world.
Yep. One of the things they're doing here is putting movie cameras on the rocket to take photographs of the dials, and then they go and retrieve the film after the rocket crashes, and then watch back the sort of like dailies as they, in order to see what's happening as best they can tell, like from the dials inside the rocket.
I thought this was interesting because we've seen already some description of like movies using military technology, or like we've seen already like or maybe the military using movies as like propaganda, but then here we're seeing like movie technology being used to support the development of military technology, which feels a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've also got Hinkle planes dropping like scale models and then being photographed on the way down.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. Makes sense.
Yeah. Well, in this, Pynchon says there has been this strange connection between the German mind and the rapid flashing of successive stills to counterfeit movement for at least 2 centuries, and talks a bit about calculus. And I think later on, Pokler calls back to that specific line when describing sort of his own life and his relationship with his daughter, which sort of happens in these series of successive stills.
Yeah, we were talking last time. You were wondering what Thomas Pynchon has to say about movies.
A lot, I think.
Yeah. This is one of the things, which is that, like, isn't it interesting that, you can counterfeit movement through successions of non-movement?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this book is like Pynchon sort of asking, isn't that interesting from a technical perspective, but what would it look like in someone's life?
Mm-hmm.
And he's sort of invented a character that has sort of a fake movement of a relationship created for him through a succession of like real world stills, which is almost, maybe that's what he means by his daughter being a film.
Yeah, I think that is what he means by
I didn't put that together fully before. But that film, like the film that has been put together for Pokler by Weissman, which actually is a concatenation of a series of still events that have happened in real life. That film feels almost more fictional than the fictional film that actually conceived his daughter.
Yeah, it's like
Did that make sense?
No. I think that's exactly right. Yeah, that feels like the cyclical structure of this chapter in a big way. Of like the child born from film becomes a film,
at some point the child was real, but sort of becomes subsumed back into the fictionality.
Shall we meet the child?
Let's meet the child.
Or Andrew, did you have something to say?
I was gonna the sort of him, Pokler, sort of often thinking about if Ilsa is some kind of actor or actress, I guess, and not his daughter, is also goes to that film idea.
Mm-hmm.
That the Ilsa he's interacting with is an actress.
Notice how many actors and costumes and disguises are in this book?
Mm-hmm. A lot of role play.
Uh-huh. For good and for ill.
So,
yep. Just after a very funny line, he smelled the ocean and could almost imagine himself as someone who lives year-round at a seaside resort but seldom gets to the beach. There's this, like, middle-classness. He's like, you know what the ideal would be? I'm done with wanting to be an ant. Now, I want to be a guy who works too much and can't get to the beach as often as he would like.
But I smell the sea.
That's living, baby. Oh, just the saddest man. Ilsa shows up.
Sort of out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Sitting on the bed, toes pointed to a flowered carpet bag. The vacuum of his life threatened to be broken in one strong inrush of love. And even already, he's like, does she look like her mother? What is a face? What is a face I'm supposed to remember?
kids change a lot at this age, surely.
I mean, I think that is kind of the brilliant horror story nature of this chapter, which is like, imagine you saw a loved one like only for 2 weeks once a year. Like as an adult, sure, you'd be like, yeah, that looks like my buddy the last time I saw him. But like, imagine seeing a child that way, and scary thought.
Well, and it's kind of like real world scary that like, yeah, Pokler is in a very particular situation here, but I could imagine like a lot of like maybe overworked fathers.
I was getting big cats in the cradle at some points in this section.
What's Cats in the Cradle?
It's the
you know
song
about the song by Harry Chaplin about
we listened to this just the other day.
Missing his son grow up because he's always on tour.
And then when he like his kid has a kid and he like calls him up and wants to hang out, his son's too busy, and he says, you know, his boy grew up just like him.
I don't know if I don't remember the specific song, but it sounds like a lot of country songs.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, Duri, you go after this recording. You can go get a cry in after you listen to Cats in the Cradle.
Okay.
Pynchon Pals reacts to Harry Chaplin's Cats in the Cradle Patreon bonus content.
Podcaster listens to Patreon or Harry Chaplin's Cats in the Cradle for the first time. Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's lots of people who don't see their kids very often.
Yeah, sort of a blink and you miss it, and suddenly your kid's grown up.
That's work, imprisonment, the, you know, displacement due to war, conflict.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary idea that, I mean, with a kid or with an adult, you don't see someone for a number of years and then you see them again. Do you really still know them? Do they know you? Mm-hmm. Are they the same person? Are they a totally different person? Even if they are the same person, like in a literal sense, Ilsa may in fact be a different person in terms of...
Oh, we'll get to the moon stuff when we
her psyche.
Get there.
Yeah. I mean, she calls him Herr Pokler here. It's not hi daddy or whatever. Like she calls him, you know, so.
Yeah.
They're certainly not very familiar.
Yeah, they call him different things. Here it's Herr Pokler, it's Poppy at one point, and then like at the very end it's Franz.
Franz, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, she's grown up.
Maybe.
Or is just a different person. It's all very ambiguous.
They'd sent her from a place in the mountains where it was chilly even in summer, surrounded by barbed wire and bright hooded lights that burned all night long. As Ilsa says it, Lenny was well, although then we read that sometimes a man in black uniform came into the barracks and Muti would go away with him and stay away for several days. Which sounds less than well.
Yeah. And then we find out that like she plays with her friend with the sort of toys from the other prisoners who've been burned.
Yeah, bleak section of the book.
Very bleak section of the book.
But also, once again, layered in this interesting, like, we don't just get this straight. We don't get a picture of, like, a concentration camp straight until the very end of the chapter. Like, the like, unadulterated vision is, like, saved for the very end. Like, that's part of the building tension, I think, throughout this chapter, is that, you know, we're getting this filtered through a child's perspective and then kind of ignored for several years.
This story of Lenny, like, this was the most detail we got from Ilsa. And it made me think that this first version of Ilsa was maybe the actual Ilsa. And then I think things get more ambiguous as time goes on. But this particular narrative where she refers to Lenny as Muti and kind of describes her to...
And like saying Mr. Pokler, like, is the kind of weird thing a child might do when
especially if they hadn't
interacting.
seen their dad in like 5 years.
Yeah. Especially, yeah, if Weissman is being like, we're going to see your dad, Herr Pokler.
Yeah, and he does like immediately recognize her in a way that like feels like maybe wouldn't be my instinct if some random child showed up in my room.
I don't know. I mean, I think, well, he rationalizes this, I think, at one point where he's talks about Weissman sort of looking through his dossier, and he's like, I guess if you go around talking about how you have a daughter you miss and don't see enough, and then someone wants to manipulate you, they would go find a fake daughter, is basically sort of what he's pitching.
Yeah, but like, it's also like very plausible that like Weissman knew Lenny, probably knew where Lenny and Ilsa ended up. Very much had access to that information, and like perhaps at least this first version of Ilsa maybe was the real one.
Which is almost like the worst possible option.
Yeah, no, it is the worst option.
The first
that, like,
one was real.
He could have saved her.
Yeah. God, this is a chilling section of the book.
I know. Well, the chilling thing is like they are all real children.
Yeah.
Even if they're not his child.
Yeah, and they're I mean, I guess we don't know for a fact if this one is actually in a camp, but like the last one definitely is like a concentration camp prisoner because all she does is eat the whole time she's on vacation with him.
So what is Franz to do but go talk to Kurt Mondaugen? A confidant, if ever there was one.
Kurt seems like he kind of sucks.
Do you get that impression?
Yeah. Yeah, he seems like a bad friend.
Yeah, Kurt tells him, you know, they call them re-education camps. They're run by the SS. I could talk to Weissman if you want. You know, me and him, we go way back. Let me tell you about Foppel's mansion. Of course, we didn't like each other that much back then.
Let me tell you about the dirt I have on Weissman from my fever dream.
It all began with Sphyrix, and it ended with Wittgenstein. Oh, if those walls could talk. Yeah, this is this really feels like sort of one of the bigger moments of egregious sin in the book. Pokler stared across the marshes, feeling helpless. I have to do something, don't I? No, you have to wait. It's not right, Mondaugen. No. Don't listen to Kurt Mondaugen.
No, he seems like, the worst. But Pokler does, and he decides not to say anything.
Yeah, now too late. When at last he wanted to act, there was nothing to act on.
Yeah, we find, I guess, in this section that Weissman was right on the money about Pokler being a non-issue and someone that can be sort of toyed with.
Mhm.
if there was any doubt.
Like they can put his lost child in front of him, tell him that she is in a concentration camp, and he will do nothing.
Yeah, he even goes like, well, education sounds pretty good.
She's in a place.
She's in a
I know
place.
where she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the thing about surely the government knows how to has people who are good at raising kids. What does he say? Have qualified people there, trained personnel.
He describes her as a little gray squirrel.
It's heartbreaking. This whole section. She wants to be what is girl Mädchen? Die Mädchen im Mond wants to be the girl on the moon.
Which was like
Das Mädchen.
Das Mädchen.
Yeah, one of the.
Gotta inflect it differently.
No, it's one of the few. It's probably maybe the only German word for a person that is like a different gender than what it is describing. Because in the CHEN is like the diminutive suffix, and it's always neutral, even though it's describing a girl.
Wow, that's
interesting.
A good little German lesson.
Language fact.
Thanks, Andrew. This is I never learned anything about German other than picking up the word from actress Mädchen Amick. Sorry, Duri, you were saying something about this heartbreaking chapter.
Yeah, I was just saying that, like, it was such a cute moment of connection where, like, Pokler kind of had become fascinated by the moon and sending a rocket to the moon, and his daughter wants to go to the moon and picks out where she wants to live on the moon.
I really liked this sort of, while they're talking, the test is occurring and the test completely fails, and she sort of very naively asks, like, is that what he was supposed to do? And he's like, no, baby, it didn't work. Very sort of sad, but in like a touching way, and like a dad just trying to do his best in front of his kid.
Sometimes Ilsa whispers to him bedtime stories about the moon she would live on. A map without any national borders, insecure and exhilarating, in which flight was as natural as breathing. This is like one of the few moments of kind of genuine tranquility in this book. And much like the tranquility, sort of domestic tranquility that Roger and Jessica have, it is here, like, with the certainty that it will soon be ripped away.
Yeah.
You want to talk about benzene?
Yeah, and in true Thomas Pynchon fashion, we go from this like really tender father-daughter moment to talking about benzene.
Thomas Pynchon's like, all right, y'all ready to get nuts? Let me
What
tell you
we
about the
haven't talked
serpent.
about in a while. The IG, the history of the IG.
Okay. Friedrich August Kekulé von Stradonitz.
This was a guy I'd heard about before.
Really?
I don't remember why, but I definitely heard his name before. I mean, it had to do with benzene, is why, but I don't remember in what context.
I don't know anything about benzene, other than I guess it's, a circle of hydrocarbons.
I definitely heard of this Kekulé guy before. Maybe it came up in my chemistry class. I don't know.
So this is... He has a dream in 1865. But thanks to Jung, we know that it's not just his dream, it's the collective dream.
I know where I read about this before.
Where?
You know the Thomas Kuhn paper about paradigm shifts?
Oh, sure. Is this one of the paradigm shifts?
I think so. I think he talks about Kekulé and benzene.
Okay, I'll link to it in the show notes. That's anthologized in many places.
Yeah, it was like one of the first papers I read in graduate school.
Same, but clearly I've forgotten all that it told me about Kekulé and benzene.
I think if that's not the case, you can cut this.
No, we'll see.
Sorry.
How do we
unpack this?
How do we untackle this? He has a dream of a great serpent, an Ouroboros a serpent eating its own tail.
Encircling the world.
Yeah. Much like the cyclical shape of a benzene molecule. Layer 1.
It sort of talks about him being able to like visualize the structure of these molecules, but benzene is confusing because of the 6 carbon atoms with the hydrogens. Can't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, brief interruption. It
Yes,
was
Duri.
not Thomas Kuhn.
Not Thomas Kuhn.
It was the other first paper that I read in graduate school. It's in
The Second Shadow.
Margaret Bowden, who wrote the Creative Mind, Myths and Mechanisms. I forget whether it's in that book or an article of hers, but she goes into an in-depth description of Kekula's dream about the benzene ring as a type of, like, when she's talking about sort of where creativity comes from and different myths around creativity.
So this is a real story, like the dream.
Yeah. It's a real story.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's in her book. I'll try to dig that up for the show notes. But that's why I was like, oh yeah, the snake dream, totally.
Wow. Andrew, did you know about the snake dream?
No, I've never heard about the snake dream.
Okay, yeah.
Wow, fascinating.
Apparently a niche piece of information I had thanks to Margaret Bowden.
Yeah, I wonder where Thomas Pynchon read about the... Oh yeah, there's a whole Wikipedia page, Kekule's dream. Wow. Okay. So we're all learning a lot of things. The serpent around the world. Among the other sort of sights of this dream world, we get some tourists going, wow, hey, that's the tree of creation, huh, ain't it? Jeepers.
Yeah, there's a similar, I don't know if you call it a fourth wall break, but it says, not just under the aspect of IG, but of the world, assuming that's a distinction you observe. Heh, heh. I always thought it was very menacing. Heh, heh.
Yeah, I thought that was Pig Bodine's laugh last time, but now I feel like it might be Lord of the Night's laugh. So Kekule was an architect at one point. I guess that's real too. Tell me this I knew Kekule was real because
Yeah, there's a whole chapter. I found the chapter in Bowden about Kekule, and it actually even sketches out the realization that he had in terms of the arrangement of the molecule.
Wow.
Which is why I was like, yeah, this guy.
Okay, you had a very different experience with this section
totally.
than I did.
There's a whole visualization of the hydrogen atoms, and talks about like visual imagery and its importance to him, and there's a lot of discussion in Bowden about like this idea of like sort of like sudden realizations as creativity, but like actually they're not necessarily sudden realizations. They've sort of been built up over
sure,
years of training as maybe an architect, for example,
or perhaps in the collective unconsciousness that Jung tells us about.
Yes.
Does that book have any sections on Clerk Maxwell and his special demon?
No. If it did, I feel like that would have been helpful for me in a number of different Pynchon readings at this point. Listener, refer back to our discussion of Crying of Lot 49 if you want an in-depth description of the demon.
Yeah, I don't know if we do
I don't
the
think we
world's
can rehash that.
best job. I don't think... Well, yeah. It sorts hot and cold without putting work into a system. That's the basics.
Listener, talk to an expert in entropy if you want a good description of the demon.
Violates thermodynamics unless what it's actually doing is letting you in on terrible secrets of the universe, and that the demon is in fact a sort of like coded correspondence, a parable about the actual existence of personnel like Liebig, the great professor of chemistry. Conspiracies. We get a reference to our fictional architect, Etzel Olsch, Once again, the guy who did all the parabolas at Middelwerk,
And
allegedly.
the real architect, Albert Speer.
And real architect Albert Speer.
Keep track of that. That's 2 real architects, 1 fake architect.
2 real Mr. and Mrs. Maxwell's, but 1 apparently fake Mrs. Maxwell quote.
I feel like Pynchon really starts cooking with gas on this next page.
Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff about the system and the world and...
Yeah, let's talk about the system and the world. Or shall I just read it?
I think maybe just like read a little segment here.
Yeah.
How could we can't do it better than Pynchon?
Trying to find a section to read, but it's kind of just the whole of page 419.
Maybe I'll read this section, which is the serpent that announces the world is a closed thing, cyclical, resonant, eternally returning, is to be delivered into a system whose only aim is to violate the cycle, taking and not giving back, demanding that productivity and earnings keep on increasing with time. The system removing from the rest of the world these vast quantities of energy to keep its own tiny, desperate fraction showing a profit. And not only most of humanity, most of the world, animal, vegetable, and mineral, is laid waste in the process. The system may or may not understand that it's only buying time. And then a little later on, I want to read this line. Living inside the system is like riding across the country in a bus driven by a maniac bent on suicide. Which I was wondering if that last sentence was too wordy to make into a Pynchon tattoo, but maybe you could use both arms to do it somehow.
I had thought that it would make a really good Twitter bio back in the day when we were all on Twitter.
Those were fun to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. The system. Thomas Pynchon is talking about the system.
Or like a good, did you guys ever have like a list of quotes on your Facebook page?
Oh, this is like an AIM away message.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
This is what Joe Biden should have said instead of the proverbs for paranoids. He should have been like, there's a quote from Thomas Pynchon. Listen, folks. Living inside the system.
I was reading this and I think I looked up for my book and I was like, whew, sometimes I feel like Thomas Pynchon just really hits.
Yeah.
Feels like this page has only become more relevant. Or maybe history's just like a sine wave.
I mean, there's just so many things in the world that you look at it. You look at systems, the system, and you're just like, this. There's no end to this that isn't self-destruction. It is just like, I mean, this is, climate change. This is sort of growth economics, sort of a drive toward increasing rates of profits in capitalism.
I have at multiple times in the past year in current events felt like I was on a bus being driven across the country by a maniac bent on suicide.
Who becomes a character in this very page.
And we board that bus, listener.
And the Lord of Death is the ticket, the guy checking tickets.
This felt very like a more interesting version of the bus in it felt kind of like the bus in Harry Potter, but also kind of the cat bus in Totoro, like a mystical bus that you're getting on, except it's just like life.
Miss Frizzle, in my old school, we never had the Lord of Death.
The bus meme where one guy's looking at the cliff and is sad, and the other guy's looking off the cliff and is happy.
I wish I was on Miss Frizzle's bus as opposed to whoever's bus we're actually on.
The system's bus.
Yeah. Me, Oedipa Moss, and Slothrop were on a bus.
I love this idea that, like, yeah, the system has this intent to, like, violate the law of the serpent. It's like we look at the serpent. We're introduced to the serpent and we're like, wow, that must be one mean customer. And then Thomas Pynchon is like, it's not the fucking serpent you need to worry about. It's the guy who's driving the bus.
I liked this bit where the Lord of the Night is checking the tickets. You know,
not just your tickets, also your ID and travel papers.
Yeah, like he's going through the whole steps of this bureaucracy so thoroughly that you forget that, and then remember that, of course, it will end for you all in blood and shock without dignity. But there is, meanwhile, this trip to be on.
Mm-hmm.
I've Googled Thomas Pynchon tattoos, and I'm not seeing anyone with a crazy bus.
I think you could make a cool. Okay, maybe you don't do the words, Patrick. Maybe you get a cool tattoo that involves like benzene and like a snake and like a bus.
Uh-huh.
It's like it could be like a little trippy kind of like the like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas illustrations.
Oh yeah, sure. The Ralph Steadman.
Mhm.
Graham Plattner announces that he's covered the recovering of his Nazi tattoo with the snake devouring the benzene molecule.
Oh wait, someone's got a sick V2 rocket coming out of a banana peel.
Oh, that's
cool.
That's the cover of The Companion. It's a V2 rocket coming out of a banana peel.
They've got a very similar. I mean, it's not the same tattoo,
Yeah.
obviously, but like they're the same art, but it is similar. Wow, good idea for a tattoo.
I like that the passengers on the bus are like playing tarot cards. I've been playing a lot of the video game Persona 3 Reload, so my brain is clued into arcana and tarot cards right now. Swords and cups. Yeah, we then in another very cinematic cut, we get we get a quote from Rilke from one of the Duino elegies. We'll have to have a conversation about Rilke at some point. Then no return, no salvation, no cycle. That's not what they nor their brilliant employee Kekulé have taken the serpent to mean. No, what the serpent means is, how's this? That the 6 carbon atoms of benzene are in fact curled around into a closed ring, just like the snake with its tail in its mouth. Get it? The aromatic ring we know today, Pokler's old prof, Laszlo Yamf, at this point in the spiel, etc., etc. Just like slide right on in there. I've definitely had been in some classes where I can't tell how rhetorical any of the professor's questions are. Extremely real.
You're right. That feels like a super cinematic cut.
And even more towards the end of this, when he like turns to Pokler directly and is like, Pokler! And then like the dream shatters.
Mm-hmm.
How many movies is that in? So we end this dream on the idea that we have these things found in nature, but that the serpent whispers they can be changed. New molecules assembled from the debris of the given. Plastics. Anything else to say on the dream? Or do we wake from the dream?
I think we wake from the dream.
Yeah.
Where Ilsa is gone.
Yeah. Just comes back one day and she's not there anymore.
Just a little note where she is at least addressing him as Pappy.
Sad note.
Yeah. Is that where we're leaving it for?
I wanted to leave it to just after this song.
Okay.
Which is because there's a little break in the paragraph, which is the last bit of it is that Pokler goes to Kurt. Kurt's like, whoa, hang on there, Hoss. We can't just go killing Weissman and sabotaging the rocket.
You got to calm down before you talk to him.
Yeah, it's like, you let me know. When you're calm, I'll set the meeting up.
And specifically, he asked him, like, you think you could be calm? And Pokler's like, no, I'd probably be upset.
Because took my daughter.
Because my daughter had to go back to the prison camp. And that really grinds my gears, Kurt.
I don't think I could be level-headed about that.
It wouldn't be a very reasonable Franz that would be seen in there.
It's just see Mondaugen, like, in some sort of, like, meditative pose, like, do you think you could be calm?
Yeah.
Franz.
You know what the problem was at Fopples? No one was calm.
Try to find your zen at this very moment. Turn inwards.
Oh. Still very startup vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, I think you were right on the money.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it.
We have a song here.
Well, before the song...
Before the song.
Pokler reflects that when Lenny left him, she left an unemployed servant who'd go with the first master that called. It just reminded me of the movie we watched, The Master.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Strongly.
I just finished editing this, but you asked in the last episode if someone could have like two masters or what happens to the old master if you go find a new master. And I think we see some of that in Franz.
Absolutely. Like, he gets left by Lenny. He, like, goes to Weissman.
Yeah.
And then, like, at points when he doesn't have a master or is questioning his master is, like, very much spiraling.
Yep.
Okay, now we can go to the song.
Yeah, it's called Victim in a Vacuum. It's in German and in English. Sounds a lot like some of the dialogue we've had in Enzian's case, Who the Heck Wants to Be Free?
It sounded kind of like a
Slothropian almost.
Televised preacher.
Yeah.
At the end. Or like a radio preacher.
Televangelist, yeah.
Yeah.
Try to reach through. Connect, brothers and sisters.
Yeah, exactly.
So we leave Franz here, victim in a vacuum. Just as they're starting to build the vacuum testing chambers for the aerodynamics of the rocket. Which we'll, I guess, turn to after a quick break. Welcome back. Here is a summary for the second part of this sequence. Remember, we're still in the same one. I wouldn't begrudge you if you had forgotten. Surely we talked about a dozen episodes by now. Franz returns to his day job, convinced by Mondaugen not to kill Weissman, whose complex game-like control over the rocket program increases as the well-funded SS take over. Ilsa appears again a year later, but Franz doesn't believe it's the same girl, casting doubts over his belief in the first Ilsa as well. They're given 2 weeks leave, and she elects to go to Zwölfkinder, which operates like a spa apparently run entirely by children. She seems no longer to have a desire to live on the moon, and when she asks to sleep in the same bed as Franz, he begins to wonder, as part of a depraved fantasy, whether Weissman has read a latent fetish for incest into his official dossier. He resolves to play the game innocently, believing as best he can that this girl is his real daughter. Over time, he begins to consider such things as the ellipse of uncertainty, watching for a test rocket's airburst from the dead center of its target. The play proceeds each August over the next 6 years, different girls, same destination, which happens to keep Franz safe from the British raid on Peenemünde. He's promptly reassigned to Middelwerk, where he continues to ignore his implication in the forced labor drawn from the adjoining Dora concentration camp. In August of 1944, he speaks frankly with the latest Ilsa, who admits to being a quote-unquote professional inmate, and which draws a hysterical strike out of Franz before he finally quits the game. She agrees to meet him here next summer, that is, in the present, following Weissman's departure from Middelwerk for a firing site in Holland, where we come to meet him, demoted it would seem, as Captain Blacaro. He contacts Franz for one last job, the development of the Quintuple Zero rocket, before disappearing once again. Franz earns one final furlough, which informs him that Ilsa, and by extension Weissman, has apparently held up her end of the deal. On his way to Zwölfkinder, he finally visits Dora and breaks down at the atrocity to which he has been complicit, slipping his wedding ring onto the finger of a dying woman.
That was a good summary.
Franz's journey continues.
He's back at work.
Back at work.
He's kind of making a list that is not unlike the Proverbs for Paranoids.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
What list do we got?
1, it is a combination. 1.1, it is a scalar quantity. 1.2, its negative aspects are distributed isotropically. 2, it is not a conspiracy. 2.1, it is not a vector. 2.11, it is not aimed at anybody. And 2.12, it is not aimed at me.
USW is German for etc., I learned.
I think that came up. Well, I don't know if it came
too.
from the pod. I think I looked it up a while ago, though.
I
think
did
it came up in
too.
the book earlier, and I had to look it up.
I looked it up earlier and then I forgot what it was. And when Patrick asked me, I was like, I think it has something to do with the Navy. It doesn't.
But it was a good guess.
I'm just making stuff up left and right.
They don't just use the Latin, etc.
Why would you use Latin if you don't have to? You know?
We do.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that Franz is ostensibly thinking about the rocket or the weapons program, and that he's trying to calm his anxiety by telling himself that it's not aimed at anybody. It's like, well, of course it's aimed at somebody. It's a weapon.
It's aimed at the moon.
It's all about getting to the moon.
Somebody's got to go get that woman up there.
Yeah, this man has really painted himself into a corner of delusions that he's doing something neutral in this world.
Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of a rumination on Pluto here that the companion had to spell it out for me, that this is a reference to the Nazi campaign against plutocrats.
Oh.
Plutocrats.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure.
That's what's going on here. I was like, what is that? How do we get to Pluto and the Nazis? But there's a good description of a rocket here as well, that it moves slowly, so slowly and so far away, which is also describing Pluto, but it will burst out. It is the grim phoenix which carries its own holocaust, deliberate resurrection.
Pokler does eventually meet with Weissman.
Yeah. Who is now definitely in the SS.
Yes.
Definitely fully SS.
When he meets with Weissman, they have a very mundane conversation, but
Yeah,
at least
it's all Weissman sort of asking technical questions that it seems like he's sort of heard some stuff, and he's like, I need some clarification on what I heard in this meeting earlier.
And Pokler at least interprets it, and we're getting the sense here that Pokler has some things in common with our dear Tyrone Slothrop in terms of his paranoia. But Pokler understands this as negotiating for his child and for Lenny. He says the questions and answers were not exactly code for something else, but in the way of an evaluation of Pokler personally.
Mm-hmm.
So this was interesting because on one hand, like, Pokler does seem to end up in a situation where he's seeing a version of his daughter on an annual basis. He never sees Lenny. And yet maybe that was going to happen anyways. Like, Pokler sort of invents that he did some sort of agentic negotiation in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not at all clear that he did. Like, maybe he and Weissman just had a conversation and he has sort of invented this relationship that they have as a way of telling himself that he did something in response to his child being in a concentration camp.
Yeah, rereading it now, it is also, and this is very sort of, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but it is Pynchon. But in the way that soon after this, Pokler suspects that Weissman thinks that he may have a fetish for incest, if they are talking about, if as Pokler thinks they're talking about his daughter, their conversation of we've got heat flow densities. He feels that if we will, Pokler is speaking and says he feels that if we use a film of alcohol on the inside of the chamber, we can reduce the heat transfer by a considerable amount. And Weissman asks, "You'll be injecting it?" "Correct," responds Pokler. Like, there's a very sort of, there's a sexual undertone to this, like, conversation about heat transfer and injection of substances into chambers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Feels like that might also be a layer this is working on that I hadn't thought of until we were rereading it now.
I have a question, which is that, like, I guess jumping ahead a little because you did, but Pokler thinks that Weissman thinks that he's into incest.
Mm-hmm.
Why would Weissman think that he's into incest?
The capital they, them, a dossier that says so, and the dossier is all-knowing.
And why would the dossier say so? Is the dossier wrong? Does the dossier know something?
Dossier is not wrong. The dossier is right.
I mean, this is also kind of
sure.
Chicherin's question, is like, what does my dossier say about me? Surely my dossier would explain why my life is like this. They must have put something in my dossier.
I guess I just wonder, I don't know, is there some reason that Franz thinks that that would be in his dossier? Like, does he have a history with that? Like,
I mean, yeah, I think if you're living in a world where there are these, like, secret police and you've got, you know, sort of neighbor informing on neighbor type intelligence apparatuses in place, I think you could infer from this that perhaps Pokler has done some, maybe not incest, but at least done some pedophilia, which could have been observed and thus could be known by the state and then by Weissman.
maybe. I guess my question was, and maybe I'm trying to read Pokler too positively here, but, like, I took the whole sequence that he had when he was thinking that I think your summary said depraved fantasy about incest. Like, I took that to be, like, a fantasy and not something he actually did.
I mean, we're just asking the Freudian question here, which is that, like, because it's narrated, it would seem to imply that, like, he does have this thought, but, like, whether or not your thoughts, your unconscious thoughts have connections with your desires or your, like, real or imagined desires and, like, what they have to say about both you fundamentally as a person, but also you as a function of the state apparatus. Like, I think that is part of the paranoia here.
Yeah, like, it was really disconcerting. I mean, for obvious reasons. It was a very disturbing passage.
And we can also cover, like,
yeah,
get
but
there
we're
when
already
we get
talking
there.
about it, so I'm just going to talk about it.
I'm just saying that, like, here, I think why I brought this up here is because I had not read this conversation as particularly sexual the first time I read it, because it sounds like engineering talk. But there is also, in a very Pynchon way, like a double speak, you know, Weissman asking, how is injecting this going to help engine efficiency? And Pokler's like, oh, efficiency will be way up. And Weissman's like, okay, got it. Loud and clear. Or at least this is how Pokler thinks they might be talking, you know?
Yeah. But, like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, like,
I think you can read this as, like, Pokler does or does not actually want to have sex with this child.
like, you could read it either way.
I mean, I think it's written in the way that it is kind of deliberately to lead you to those uncertainties, because, like, Pokler himself feels uncertain about this. He is wondering himself, am I
supposed to feel
this way? Am I supposed to know that this isn't really my daughter?
Yeah, like the way that I wanted to read this was that Pokler was sort of basically a good guy, but then was like kind of pushed into these like deliriums because Weissman was like toying with him and like trying to get him to see his daughter in a certain way, but then Pokler ultimately like came to his senses.
Yeah, which might be, I think that
was the way I kind of wanted to, I mean, not that it's still concerning, but that was kind of how I wanted to read it, and not, I mean, certainly not that he like raped his daughter.
Yeah.
But then I think it also like raised the uncertainty of like, why would Pokler think that this is something that someone else would think of him?
Yeah.
Like where did he jump to that conclusion? I don't know that would be the first conclusion I would jump to, per se.
I think that is the uncomfortable question about Franz Pokler.
Yeah.
Why would you think that someone would think that of you?
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I mean, it could be like something happened to him in his past that's in his dossier that he thinks like maybe that's translated.
Sure.
Over. It could be something not that he'd done, but that was done to him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was like, why would you think that someone would think that?
Yep. So they have this conversation. And then Ilsa shows up again. What do you know? Just like that.
Yeah, this is the first time that he's, I guess, convinced or concerned that it's not the same girl. He points out her hair seems darker. It's cut differently. That doesn't seem like any kind of evidence to me. People get their hair cut all the time. He thinks her eyes look different. Complexion less fair. That's also not good evidence. And he's not sure if they're the right age.
Yeah. This Ilsa doesn't know anything about Lenny either.
Yeah. Like she seemed, but it also like it's so ambiguous because it could be that this is a different child that's being substituted. That absolutely seems plausible, but it also could be that it is Ilsa and she's just very traumatized from being in a concentration camp for a year, and like probably Lenny's died, and like maybe she's tried to block her out of her memory and she looks gaunt and her hair's cut, and like I feel like that is also an equally plausible situation, that like his daughter is sort of unrecognizable because she's been horrifically imprisoned for a year.
Yeah, I mean, it says that Ilsa and Lenny have been separated per Ilsa's report. So if your kid's in a prison camp like that, you know, all of these things are like exactly what would be happening to a person in a prison camp, and you're just like picking up on that. And perhaps he's sort of in denial about, just doesn't fully understand what like a concentration camp is fully like at this point, so he doesn't get it. But
yeah,
he's also using it as evidence of being sort of played with by Weissman.
Yeah, I feel like this is a really good example of like possibly you invent this sort of wild conspiracy to explain a much worse situation that's going on.
Yeah.
That like it's too hard to live with the idea that this is actually my daughter and she is actually being tortured and treated in this way. And so I've invented this story where this isn't actually my daughter.
I think this is actually one of the most effective, like, Pynchon has written a lot about paranoia, specifically and also kind of generally, and I think this chapter is maybe the most effective so far of, like, making you feel that to some extent.
Yeah, I felt just as kind of confused, uncertain, and like disconcerted as like possibly Franz Pokler did as I was reading this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt sort of sick to my stomach at a couple points.
There's a brief flashback to a domestic scene that I thought was really interesting, where like little baby Ilsa leaned over and bit him on the leg one time, and he's like, I remember her biting me on the leg.
I laughed at this because it kind of quotes like the perspective of Ilsa the baby, or like he says, Pokler in this imagined or like recollection says, I'm your father, and Ilsa says, you're inert and edible, which is something a baby would think. I laughed at that. I thought it was cute.
But here's something about Franz Pokler. He is kind of inert and edible as a human. This is something that Major Weissman also knows about Franz Pokler, is that this is the most inert man alive. Yeah, he knew all Ilsa's cryings, her first attempts at words, the colors of her shit, the sounds and shapes that brought her tranquility. He ought to know if this child was his own or not, but he didn't.
Yeah, and like she doesn't remember, she doesn't talk about the moon anymore. Like she seems much less talkative and imaginative than the previous Ilsa, which again could be a different child, but could also just be her being traumatized and losing innocence.
Yeah, I mean the sort of transition, we don't know what camps she's in at this point, but like the concentration camp system as a whole did like mature into the death camp system. Like it didn't start that way. So it could be reflecting that.
Yeah.
And also kids are, they grow up, they become less interested in the moon. That's a pretty standard thing, I think. Lots of kids are interested in a topic and then like a year later are not interested in that topic anymore. And he doesn't know that because he's not a good father.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Fair. Well, and even like a little kid would not necessarily remember that they were into the moon a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. Just the idea of being like, yeah, the moon is a thing. Like, I don't remember this. There's also like one conversation that they had one time where she was like, I would like to live in the moon. And then she goes on like a deep dive for a couple days.
Yeah, like it's so meaningful to him. And yet just like a passing moment to her, if it is indeed the same her. I feel like that's just like being a parent sometimes, I imagine.
I mean, it's literally, I guess he was with Ilsa when she was a baby, and then this is the 1 week they've spent together since then, and this is 1/500th of her life. So it's just like inherently not as meaningful to her.
The time they have spent together amounts to only hours, you mean to say? This whole book's about like really brief but very powerful connections,
Yeah.
Assemblages or associations or whatever Gailey Tripping talks about. She wants to go to Zwölfkinder. Ilsa Prime does.
Zwölfkinder, the Busch Gardens / Epcot of North Germany.
Sort of Euro Disney turned like, I don't know if you guys had this, but when I was in grade school, we went on a field trip to, I forget the name of it, but it was like this place where for a day, like we got to run a small town. Like as kids, you could be the banker, the grocer, and you got like fake money and you had to figure out how to manage your money. Otherwise, like you would make your business, like the post office, go bankrupt.
Were you on the 1 season long reality show Kid Nation in the early 2000s?
Duri got Kid Nationed as a kid. She didn't even know she was on TV.
No, there was like a place that like I feel like everyone went on a field trip.
No, they don't have that in.
What's that a thing?
That's how you know you're not in Kansas anymore. Is when they don't have Kid Nation. No, that is a weird thing that you did. That I've never met anyone else who has had that. But there are some precedents for Zwölfkinder here. There is Artek, which was a camp in the 1920s in the Soviet Union that the Young Pioneers organization would, it was sort of like a town fully run by children of the young pioneers in Soviet Union. And then there is also the Children's Republic, located in La Plata, Argentina.
All the places that we've read about in this book.
So, as has Thomas Pynchon. But it's like a proportional city sized for children with like a courthouse and restaurants and hotels. And allegedly, Walt Disney was kind of inspired by the design of the Children's Republic to make Disneyland. So, okay, I'm now looking up. Yep, the Kansas City Children's City.
Exchange City.
Yep.
It no longer exists.
Well,
it's now on r/liminal space. Nothing has ever made me feel more old.
someone posts that on Reddit and you're just like, ah, yes, I remember that liminal space. Oh, wow. So, yeah, that's what this is. They got children cops. They got children hotels. Oh, a child city council of 12. That's the 12 children.
Oh, wow. Council of 12 sounds something like out of a like demon handbook from...
Sure. Maybe it is.
The Council of 12.
Duri, you didn't make it sound like this place was just like a room inside a mall. I was
It was
picturing
kind of-
more outside.
Well, yeah, it was like a big room, but no, yeah, I just really...
I mean, here's one thing. I will link this in the show notes. It does belong in liminal spaces.
Yeah.
This is the most backroom shit that ever existed.
It was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fun.
I liked it.
That's, you know, what child doesn't want to be a child cop and patrol the streets?
And I think you do see play out, you know, all sorts of social scenarios that are probably replicated in the adult world.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting that he was like, you know, there's someone running it behind the scenes because there's no way that children could actually be running this town. And I was like, I feel like the children could probably run the town just as well as the adults are running the world at this exact point in history.
I mean, this is the question about them. It's like, do you assume that there's a them behind the scenes? Or is this just, the world is just run by children without a them behind them?
Yeah. Also, maybe it was every adult in this place has to have a child escort, and maybe it was the depraved fantasy of poklers that comes up a little later on. But I got real creepy vibes.
I don't hate that policy.
Yeah, you don't want
you can't be here without a kid. Like, who's your child? Although I don't like that it's like a child police officer pulling you over for being alone.
No, but I think generally that's probably a safe bet, is you don't just want strange men wandering around the children town.
That's true, but it also like gave a weird vibe of like...
Sure. Does it also give a weird vibe that the children stream to the fanged mouths of dragons, wild lions, and tigers to like use the water fountain
That's
inside
sick.
their mouths?
Well, and they're like reenacting the Herero genocide.
Yeah.
By General von Trotha's brave men in blue.
And did anybody else get Visu vibes from the Antarctic panorama?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That's a, yeah.
That, yeah.
Listener, if you don't know what Visu is, I don't know how to explain it to you. I
I've
don't
got
really
a
know
book
what
you can
Visu
read.
is. It's got something to do with V and Antarctica. And this is a smart trick he tries, where he's like, so, Antarctica, kind of like the moon, wouldn't you say? And she's like, I
Okay,
guess.
Dad. Yeah.
And this is where we move into the hotel room, where, quote, a number of uncertainties shifted then for Pokler and locked into sense. He was seeing it from their side. Which is where he has this it is. I mean, it's really interesting that this is narrated not immediately as fantasy, but as like actual things that are happening
deeply
in the room.
disturbing.
Yeah.
Deeply disturbing. Like it leapt from this like very kind of like intimate and cute father-daughter relationship, like tragic, but like there have been some really tender moments between them. And I thought Pynchon like painted a father's, albeit a bad father's, like love for his daughter pretty well. And it jumped from that to like this sort of like depraved pedophilia slash incest, narrated as though it actually happened. And then we get like a no and then a contradiction of that whole paragraph that we just read. And I reread this like 4 times because I was like, is it clear that he didn't do that? And that was just something he thought. And it's I think purposely.
I mean, I think it's clear in the text he does not do this.
Yeah. But like not crystal clear. I don't know. I mean, I think it's clear that he doesn't. It's not written clearly.
Yeah.
Like it becomes clear through the following sequence of actions.
For sure.
But I think that it is written here to kind of purposely confuse the reader.
Yeah. Well, this is also like, there's resonances here of like Slothrop's conditioning as well. Like, is this the response that he has been conditioned to have to being alone in a bedroom with his quote unquote daughter? And he like rejects that response. But it wouldn't be narrated if he wasn't like, we didn't have some insight into his interiority. At least I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real, I feel like what might be an incredibly damning thought he has. Every quirk goes in the dossier: gambler, foot fetishist, or soccer fan. The sort of fact that he is equating his quote unquote quirk to being like a guy who watches too much Bundesliga on the weekends.
Yeah.
Is not good.
I mean, high up on the list of things we know about this guy are his wife left him and took their daughter with her. Is one potentially important piece of evidence.
Her daughter, who she didn't really seem to like having around that much.
Yeah, who she believed it was like a betrayal of her revolutionary idealism to be a mother in the first place.
Yeah, it's interesting that, like, I feel like Franz exercises his free will at only a couple of points in this chapter. And I feel like this might be one of those points where, like, maybe he has certain inclinations or has, like, been conditioned in a certain way, but does seem here to, like, whatever the fantasy may be, he rejects it in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, when he like quits the game, I feel like that's the only other point where he sort of exercises.
Yeah, an important image here is he hits her first before anything else. He strikes her face, which recurs later as something that actually definitely happens.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, I said that he only exercises free will at those 2 points. I don't actually agree with that. I think he's exercising free will, like, by not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe these are, like, 2 decisions he makes to kind of in opposition to them.
Yeah. So he decides to be like, I'll do this. This is I won't do that, but I will do this by accepting very innocently that this is my daughter. This is a good sentence. It was a real moment of conception in which years too late he became her father.
Yeah, and it says that he did this not out of courage, but of conservation.
Yeah.
I think, like, at several points it mentions that, like, if he ceased to believe that this was Ilsa, I think he would just fall apart. It's
also something where, like, if he does go through with this, like, fantasy of molestation, then that also becomes something that Weissman has over him. So, like, by refusing to participate in that way, by playing along, by like playing the innocent, he is, you know, conserving those pieces on the game board as he understands it.
Yeah, I guess he sees like a couple of different roles he could play in this scenario, and he picks the father role.
Yeah. And that goes on for 6 whole years.
6 whole years.
This is the persistence of vision they've created. They have used it to create for him the moving image of a daughter, flashing only these summertime frames of her.
Again, I feel like that just feels like a film reel of a kid growing up in any movie.
Yeah, it's got the old like Super 8 home videos.
Yeah.
Scene in Christmas Vacation where Chevy Chase is up in the attic watching the home movies. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a quick scene of him back at work. They are all kind of standing around during a wind tunnel test where they're pumping the air out and then like puncturing the vacuum. That sort of throws back. I think there was a line earlier about when he first sees Ilsa about his like love rushing in, coming out of a vacuum. That this, I think, is reminiscent of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he reflects on sort of how he's maintained this like smiling buddy relationship with Major Weissman while knowing that he is like helping to run concentration camps in which his wife and daughter either are or were killed.
A lot of this chapter reminds me, there's an Anton Chekhov story called The Man in the Case, which is also about a guy who like isolates himself and like kind of removes himself from the reality of his situation and is like builds a kind of psychological case around himself, which is basically what Pokler does. He makes himself a vacuum chamber, as you just said, Andrew.
Reminds me of the Mountain Goats song, Autoclave.
Yeah, that too. Pokler misses Peenemünde and believes that surely that's Weissman's doing as well, but
bombing at Peenemünde.
Yeah, what did I say?
You just said missing Peenemünde.
Oh yes, he misses.
Just, like, is longing for it.
He might also be doing that, but yeah, he misses the British air raid on Peenemünde, which, as we learned in one of the documentaries, does not kill most of the scientists, but does kill many civilians who were in the labor camp adjoining it.
Yeah, and Pynchon sort of draws an analogy between that and how the V2 rockets sort of landed more often on the poorer areas of London.
Gwynhydwy, I can see you from here. All these pages away. Yeah, the scientists at Peenemünde are not thrilled that he happened to be at an amusement park during the time.
Understandably.
Yeah, I guess that's evidence perhaps that they're not all going to... It's not like it would just happen to be his 2 weeks at the amusement park. I mean, I guess there's another time later he's like, it's weird that I'm getting PTO.
Yeah.
No one else is.
During the middle of this war. But it certainly is reinforcing the idea that Weissman is toying with him or is grooming him for something.
I had a question about this bit. So he like consults again with his buddy Mondaugen, and Mondaugen's like, "Nah, I don't feel guilty about it." And then he's reflecting on Weissman, who is coming up with new game variations, building towards a maximum cruelty in which Pokler would be unlaid to nerves, vessels, and tendons, every last convolution of brain flattened out in the radiance of the black candles, nowhere to shelter, entirely his master's possession. What are the black candles here? I originally got Pokler and Peter Saxa kind of mixed up, and I thought that was like Pokler being part of a seance, but that feels wrong now.
I mean, seances come up here at one point earlier, so I think I don't know. There's some kind of implicate. Doesn't it say?
Is this supposed to be like a satanic ritual?
Yeah, like a
Yeah,
black
it feels like
mass?
he's
You
been
mean,
summoned.
literally been like he's like being skinned in the middle of candles.
In the middle of a black mass, which we know Pynchon kind of loves.
Yeah, that was the vibe I got. Also, I just read the news about the German man who designed the Body Worlds exhibits, in which the like human corpses were sort of skinned and flayed open, recently passed away.
Yeah, if you want to read about I had not really heard of this guy, but I think in retrospect I'd seen some of these exhibits discussed before, but like they plastify like skinned corpses to like show musculature. So if you want to read about, I don't know, death to death transfigured.
And there's some Nazi questions as well.
There's Nazi questions about that guy too?
Well, I think his dad was an SS officer or
Interesting.
a cook for the SS. And then like he's German. And so the exhibit started in Germany. And I think there were a lot of like bad vibes from like displaying sort of like flayed corpses. And then there was some controversy about where the corpses were sourced from.
I could understand why the German government would have questions about this kind of artistic display.
Yeah, like I think some of the corpses were either knowingly or unknowingly sourced from like prisons in Kyrgyzstan. A lot of controversy around the Body Worlds exhibits, but when I was reading an article about it, I was like, feels very Pynchon-esque, and then suddenly Holkler was envisioning himself sort of flayed.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. He's imagines himself flayed in a black mass. He's transferred to materials, procuring plastics. We can only imagine who might have invented some of the plastics that he's procuring.
Who could it have been?
Who indeed?
Who indeed?
This is when they're at the test in Blizna, Poland.
Mm.
Or I guess they're in Sarnaki, and
Yeah, it's just before they move to Middelwerk.
Yeah, the issue, I guess, is that at Peenemünde, they're all shooting into the ocean, so they can't see any of the rocket coming down towards Earth, and so they've moved to Poland, where they can shoot from Poland to Poland and have like eyes on the rocket as it returns to Earth.
I learned from the companion that this trick about like, oh yeah, statistically, the dead center of the target's the best place to be, because what are the odds it's going to hit it, was in fact a trick that Walter Dornberger talks about using during these tests, where like he and some of the rest of the scientists and brass would just set up shop right on the target. And it did hit one time, and he kind of got knocked into the air because it hit really, really close to the target. But speaking of Roger Mexico,
I was looking up Blizna, and apparently, and then I guess when you look up Blizna, you also get Sarnaki, because that's where they were like, I guess, like sort of sister sites. It says that in 1944, one of the V2s launched at Sarnaki landed whole in a river and was smuggled out by like resistance fighters to the English.
Interesting.
And at least like parts of it were taken and like gotten to British operatives.
Interesting.
Just a fun fact.
Surprised that didn't come up here. Maybe the reporting on it hadn't been unclassified yet when Pynchon was writing this. Yeah, this is where he meditates on the ellipse of uncertainty.
He becomes very panicked that perhaps the warhead on this rocket is live and not just the dud, and that Weissman knows that it will hit him and hit at the target, and thus this is like an elaborate way to kill him off.
I feel like this is a good depiction of how paranoia becomes sort of I'm trying to find the right word, but like self-centeredness at some point.
Yeah.
Like, how important do you think you are, Pokler, that you think they're going to waste an entire V2 rocket to take you out?
Well, they're doing the test. You might as well put him.
It's like idiocy in the original meaning of the word, of like centered on the self.
Yeah, like parts of this paranoia feel like it could be true, but then it's gone so far that it's like he's woven this whole web where it's like the whole world is kind of revolving around Pokler. And I guess he's like, he mentions just the next page, like the dream of the perfectly victimized.
Yeah, which he can't rationalize with the need bred into him to take care of business.
Nor see how this might be one and the same.
Which again is just like, this is the sort of like middle classness of, it's like, yeah, but you know, I still gotta punch the clock.
I can't just leave this job. I'm being,
It's my job.
even if I'm the ultimate victim.
Yeah, I liked this sentence sort of indicting all of the engineers and scientists gathered. If there is a massive failure of vision this morning in the Polish meadow, if no one, not even the most paranoid, can see anything at all beyond the stated requirements, certainly it's not unique to this time. That's like they're all sort of blinding themselves to what's actually going on because they want to hit their targets and deadlines.
Yeah, their eyes are only looking for one thing. Got your blinders on.
He goes to Middelwerk.
He's transferred there.
He's in a room with a bulb over his head all night long. We learned about the light bulbs at Middelwerk.
What did we learn about the light bulbs in Middelwerk?
They were all
taken by the...
taken.
Yeah.
The bulb was a representative of Weissman. The Schwarzkommando start to step up into... they had grown away from the SS structure, much as the SS itself had come from the German army. And we get a brief shot of Weissman at work on a messy desk.
Yeah, I noticed the messy desk.
Who else had a messy desk?
We got a couple messy desks.
Yeah.
But Slothrop.
I like how he looks at this guy and he's just like, he just looks like a bureaucrat. There's nothing particularly evil about this man, like looking at him, other than like presumably the, you know, all black trench coat with the skulls on it. But if you set that aside, this is just like
he took the trench coat off to sit at his desk.
Yeah. Just a shirt and tie.
Turns out bureaucracy might be how you accomplish evil.
Whoa.
Paper.
Pokler at this point is like very actively trying to pretend that he doesn't see the Dora prisoners.
Yeah, I love the metaphor that his guilt has become a sensual thing prickling at his eyes and membranes like an allergy. You know, young Thomas Pynchon was like a nerdy kid with a runny nose in the spring going to mass and being like, this is kind of what guilt is like. He thinks he should have throttled Weissman where he sat, which probably would have been a good idea.
Yeah.
Would it have helped, though?
Probably not.
I think it would have made him feel better before he died. And it probably would have, like, resolved some other problems in the world. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, we don't know what Weissman's planning. This could have been, you know, it could be a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas by the time we figure out where Weissman is and what he is capital D doing.
I feel like it would be a net good for the world if someone killed Weissman. I feel like I could say that at this juncture. Confidently. There's sort of a tragic reflection here where I feel like we keep getting a lot of these, like, because this is kind of a flashback, we keep getting moments of lucidity from sort of present, quote unquote, present day Pokler rethinking over his past actions. And here he's very much like, how was I so blind to this concentration camp that was like literally in the same mountain as me, and my daughter could have been in that very concentration camp, and how did I not see that she looked like the prisoners? And if he must curse Weissman, then he must also curse himself.
Yeah, the Daedalus and Labyrinth references here also bring us back to Pointsman in Mexico's conversation about the Labyrinth. Gift of Daedalus that allowed him to put as much labyrinth as required between himself and the inconveniences of caring. They had sold him convenience, so much of it all on credit, and now they were collecting. This is also like an echo, I'm just realizing as I said it out loud, like this is one of the things that Fopple talks about when he reminisces on the Herero genocide, is that like at some point the like switch flips and you stop caring. Like you don't see the human as human anymore. And
yeah, it's just
like,
that Fopple, I feel like, talked about that as a freeing sensation.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think Pokler feels the same way about it.
But I think he talks about it as an inconvenience. Like
the caring.
Isn't it so much more efficient once you can get rid of that sort of humanity from yourself and from the other? Like saying it out loud reminded me that I think that is the word he uses, is that it's like an inconvenience. This is their last furlough. This would be August 1944.
Ilsa confirms that she does in fact live at Dora. And when they go to Wolfkinder, they're the only people there because there's a war going on. The war is coming to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rides aren't moving. The food's all spoiled.
First rockets are about to go out into the field.
No one else is there because they can't afford it.
Ilsa, her eyes so nearly empty, drifting without real interest toward random boys destined for the Volkssturm. Older boys no more interested in her. They dreamed of their orders of colossal explosions and death. There's one particular slender boy who flickered across her path, so blonde, so white he was nearly invisible in the hot haze that had come to settle over Wolfkinder. And we go back to the second shadows business. Cast 2 lights, get 2 shadows. Everybody's got 2 shadows. Or at least 2. I still feel like there might be more than 2 for some of these characters. Like, Ilsa, Katja, and Lenny all seem sort of in a triad, but there's also this boy, the blonde boy here, who seems like a shadow.
Yeah, I feel like Slothrop has several shadows going on at this point.
This is when Polker tries to quit, asking Ilsa, or I guess, yeah, if she doesn't want to come back next year, she doesn't have to. And she talks about being a professional prisoner.
Yeah, she has the line, "It's here, the camp. I don't really want to be anywhere. I don't care."
And then, yeah, she tells him that she'll come back next year.
She will come back. Meaning, at least to Pokler, not the next Ilsa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But this is also where Pokler does slap her. Much like he fantasized about doing in the hotel room. And then in a very funny moment, immediately afterwards, Duck's surprised at the sharp report about-faced and waddled away.
Yeah, it says close to losing control. Pokler committed then his act of courage. He quit the game. I wonder if that's a reference to the like idea that like Pokler is kind of like suppressing certain urges.
Could be.
Like, I mean, it could be losing control over his emotions. It could also be losing control over, like, especially given the slap, like...
Yeah. His sexual desires.
Yeah.
Could also be, I mean, it could be, yeah, it's just giving up on the pretense, but... Yeah, we do not see this reunion actually happen by the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
I did find this idea that if you want, you don't have to come back next year, even though next year meant so little by that point in Germany, also reminded me of like Roger and Jessica's conversations of like, what does next year mean? If the war is over, like, what are plans?
Yeah.
We don't have plans.
Well, and this whole thing, especially given the fact that they're in like a child-run amusement park that no longer has any children in it, like very much feels like a loss of innocence. This whole passage ends with summer ended.
Mm-hmm.
And the line earlier that Ilse passed herself by to fixed at some shadowless interior noon to mark the intersection or to care. It's kind of this idea that like child Ilse has sort of walked into adult Ilse.
Mm-hmm. Like the Argentine U-boat and Pig Bodine's ship. They like cross and they intersect, but at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And now we finally caught up with the start of the book, because it's winter 1944.
Yeah. And they're starting to... Okay, yeah.
Yep, the timelines. Speaking of timelines intersecting.
And we get some pretty important information, I feel like.
Like what?
Coming in hot at the end of this sequence.
Beep, breaking news.
Turns out, according to Pokler's understanding, what Weissman has been saving him for this whole time, keeping him on the ropes for, is he calls him into being part of this like secret committee to modify one rocket with quintuple zeros painted on it.
Yep. They brought sort of one expert from each subsystem in to make the required modifications, and Pokler in particular is making some kind of fairing, some insulated fairing device. And, other people are rerouting pipes and doing things like that so they can to put in a new piece of tech.
Produced elsewhere. Nicknamed the Schwarzgerät because of the high secrecy surrounding it.
So this is what Slothrop has been seeking.
Mm-hmm.
This one rocket. And we don't really know why.
And Enzian. Enzian is also looking for this rocket.
Everyone's looking for the quintuple zero rocket. And we don't really know why they modified it. Weissman leaves. This is all that Pokler knows, but we do know that it exists and Pokler was involved.
And this is the like final part of the Faustian bargain. Like he's like, oh, this is why I was saved. This is why I was elect. I am part of Weissman's elect, not the preterite, etc., etc. And I am now getting my end of the deal.
This next chapter really pissed me off. About it says the first week in April, with American units supposed to be arriving at any moment, most of the engineers were packing, collecting addresses of coworkers, drinking farewell toasts, drifting through the emptying bays. There's a graduation feeling in the air. I hate these guys.
I think Thomas Pynchon
every
does
single
too.
one of them. Yeah, but like, the fact that all of these fucking war criminals were just like chewing the fat and waiting to get picked up so they could come over here and just continue to be engineers, and we just let them do it, makes me so mad.
Yeah, hey, I'll see you in Florida. You ever been to Florida?
I've heard it's nice and sunny there.
Heard it's nice in Florida.
Yeah.
We won't have to live under a mountain anymore.
Rains in Peenemünde in the winter. It doesn't rain in Florida.
Just vile.
And it wraps us back around nicely to the sort of like, it's both like a monastery, but also like a frat house, which is like, I mean, this is an intersection that Pynchon is always kind of on about. The secret society, the frat house, the priesthood.
Yeah, and like they're excited that the cloistered life was about to come to an end. Mm-hmm. It's just like, it's so icky. They got into this because they supposedly liked rockets, but then they were totally okay with being war criminals, but they got kind of tired of, being
Isn't it
cooped
so
up in this mountain.
inconvenient that we're under this mountain?
It's so inconvenient to be under this mountain, and like there's a shortage. Like, oh, wouldn't it be nice not to have to like consult 4 plastic companies every time we wanted to get a part?
Yeah, City of Elves producing toy moon rockets.
Can't you wait to go to America?
To update this to modern times, we might switch out Gaudeamus Igitur for, as we go on, we'll remember all the times we spent together, or Green Day's Time of Your Life.
Yeah, Time of Your Life. Yeah.
They're signing yearbooks.
So yeah, someone's put together a slideshow presentation of photos of them.
Jesus.
There's one guy who's in too many of the photos and one guy who's not in any of them.
I hate how confident they are that like they're going to face absolutely no consequences for what they've done.
I mean, you saw Von Braun walking out of that
I know.
spa town.
I know.
He knew what was up.
Yeah.
Of course he did. Anyways, there's some more funny lines towards the end here before we get to some extremely not funny lines, such as Pokler getting the usual furlough form superseded now by the imminent death of the government.
I like that he also like still takes it seriously though.
That's just him.
Yeah.
He can't stop. He's like, well, I certainly couldn't take time off without getting a piece of paper.
Gotta get my furlough.
Yeah, you think if he hadn't gotten that, he just would have continued to work in Mittelwerk until he was like physically picked up and removed by the American army?
Presumably.
And then we get to the supremely grim end of the sequence, where Pokler walks out of Mittelwerk, and goes into Dora.
Yeah, he had tried a couple of times, quote unquote, to like look in on Dora before, and had kind of been politely turned away by the guards.
Yeah, he's like, well, once was told no and was like, well, I've exhausted
I tried.
Available opportunities.
I asked nicely.
So this time, there is no guard, so he is able to walk through.
And he sees all of the horrors and can no longer pretend.
Yeah, I liked in particular this notion, each face so perfect, so individual. The lips stretch back into death grins. I mean, there's been a lot of skull imagery throughout this book, but also the idea that, like, for the first time he's looking at these people's faces. Like, he has been in the factory seeing these people day in and day out, and he's, like, never noticed that they have individual faces.
Yeah. Says all his vacuums, his labyrinths had been the other side of this. While he lived and drew marks on paper, this invisible kingdom had kept on in the darkness outside all this time.
I'm still thinking through this notion of impotence, mirror rotation of sorrow. That you flip sorrow around and it becomes not being able to do anything.
I feel like it's connected to this idea that like he's crying, but that doesn't get rid of the problem.
Yeah, it says that the tears don't bring down the prison walls.
And they never did. Like tears never do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like you can have all the regrets you want, can't do anything to change what you did or what happened.
Yeah, this we don't have to go into it in super detail for those who have not read V, but this final image is very reminiscent of a particular image from V.
Mm-hmm.
Of the
I hadn't thought about that, but 100%.
Sort of like dying woman.
Yeah.
He's been wearing his wedding ring this whole time.
It's really sad. Like he's at once a sort of despicable character.
Yeah.
But also like a very sad character. Yeah.
Pitiable.
I mean, this is the thing, like, he's like a despicable character, but he has real emotions. Like, they are real feelings. The feelings aren't good for nothing at this point, but like they are real feelings, and Thomas Pynchon is a good enough writer that like you feel both sides of these feelings.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like some might say the majority of the characters in these books are sort of despicable characters in various ways, but Thomas makes us relate to them and feel their pain.
Yeah. Now, Oedipa Maas has never done anything wrong in her life. But yeah, the idea, I mean, this is also the mirror image of the, like, is this my child? Is this not my child? Like, for all intents and purposes, this may as well be Linny.
Mm-hmm.
This poor woman here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oof. We made it to the end of the longest sequence in the book.
We did it.
I feel like the last time was Brinchloose. This feels like the coming down of the rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Just a devastating sequence.
This, I really do think this sequence may be Thomas Pynchon's best work so far, which is saying something.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not his best, it's certainly up there.
Yeah, I think, as I said at the beginning, I think this section is going to be a standout when you sort of think back to this book in a couple of years' time from having read it. You'll be like, oh yeah, Pokler.
Are there
Sure.
off the dome? Is there another standout sequence from the first half of the book that you can pull out?
I think there are scenes. I think there are like, you might say like clips, that are really standoutish. I mean, some of them are so short that I think inherently the whole thing is kind of a one sort of shot that you would remember. Like I think it'll be this and like the throwing pies at Marvy in the plane in that hot air balloon. But like as far as like an extended, like I don't think like I remember really well parts of like the very first section. But I don't think I couldn't tell you every part of it. Like, I think I would be able to be like, and then Pokler and Ilsa do this, and then he has this confrontation with Weissman.
It's much more of a story.
Yeah, I mean, the structure lends itself to remembering what's happening because they just tell you, he tells you all of it at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I feel like I have snippets that really stand out to me, like Roger and Jessica's interludes, and especially like the Christmas scene where they go to church.
I was going to say, I think that is the most comparable thing to this in the book so far.
And
is
there's
the
like
even
children
song
at
mass.
the train station.
Yeah.
Children, quote unquote. But yeah, so that stands out to me, but it's not nearly as long or like.
This also isn't in quite as like vaulted a register as like the Evensong Mass or like the conversion of the dodos. Like there's a certain, you can feel it switch sometimes when Thomas Pynchon is like, here we go, buckle up, because we're about to, go 0 to 100. And it happens a little bit here with some of the Great Serpent stuff. But like by and large, this chapter is like things happening to people.
Yeah, well, that's why it reminds me so much of Mondaugen's story, is that in V, I feel like the other passage that really stands out to me, at least in V, was the Malta chapter.
This got Malta all over it.
But the Malta chapter, I feel like was a little bit more difficult to read.
Yeah.
And parse. Whereas like Mondaugen's story, I feel like shares with this segment a sort of like somewhat of a play-by-play narrative of a cohesive story.
Yeah. I think that's a fine thought to end on. Thomas Pynchon, good at telling stories.
Good writer.
Good writer. Thank you for listening to Pynchon Pals. And thank you to Andrew Tillett.
Thank you.
And to Duri Long.
Thank you
for joining me. If you like what we're doing here, I think this was a pretty good episode, if I say so myself. Good chapter, good episode. I feel illuminated from our discussion here today.
As always, I learned some things.
Duri and Andrew. I learned that Kekule's serpent was real. That was worth the price of admission. That was worth doing 24 episodes of this podcast.
And I got a whole book. You can read more about it.
There you go. If you like what we're doing here, Sorry, what were you saying, Andrew?
I learned that Duri did some crazy stuff on field trips from elementary school. I think that's the thing. I'll be like, what did I learn on that podcast episode?
You learned that Duri, what was your job in Childrenland?
I was trying to remember that.
You were
I
probably
don't
like
remember.
the banker or something.
Yeah. You didn't get to pick. It was something that was assigned to you, and it was all like a very big to do. Like, who were you going to get to be? But I don't remember who I was.
I feel like I see Duri as like a mail carrier, like a little satchel.
I would love that.
Yeah, I could see that too. I think I'd like to be.
You know what? I remember I worked at the newspaper.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm imagining that there could be like a fun version of this that's like you could go to different historical eras and do like children's Deadwood, children's Utopian Space Society, children's Prohibition Chicago.
I mean that they go back to von Trotha's Sudwest Africa.
Maybe we cut that one.
I
when
think we
build
cut
this
that
place.
one for sure.
If you like what we're doing here, listener, including tangents like that, we'd love it if you left us a review on Apple Podcasts or on your podcatcher of choice. Our next episode, we'll be reading episodes 3.12 through 3.14. If you'd like to get in touch with the show or submit a question to be answered on air, you can reach us at pynchonpals@gmail.com. To support the work we do here, you can head to patreon.com/pynchonpals. And soon enough, you'll be able to listen to us talk about the Testament of Dr. Mabuza. That'll be exciting. Our theme music is Horology by the inimitable King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, released under a Creative Commons Attribution No Derivatives license on the album Polygon Dwanaland. Pynchon Pals is produced and edited by me, Patrick Fiorilli. You can find more of my work alongside my newsletter, Critical Theory Craft, at my website, www.patf.io. Until next time.
I had nothing.
Not a lot to pull from in this chapter.
Not a lot to Paul. See you at Zwolfkinder. It's almost August. Or it will be August when this comes out.
Yeah. Do we want to see people at
I don't think
Zwolfkinder?
so.
Have a it's like graduation. Have a great summer.
Have a great summer.
Hags. I was outside grilling the other day, had my grill playlist going, and
Hell yeah.
I was listening. Tears for Fears came up, as it does on the grill playlist, and I was realizing Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Great theme song for Gravity's Rainbow.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There's a room where the light won't find you, holding hands while the walls come tumbling down. When they do, I'll be right behind you.
How good is Tim Blake Nelson going to be in the Gravity's Rainbow as Weissman?
Tim Blake Nelson. Is that the guy in the... Oh, yeah, all the Coen Brothers movies, yeah. And
Yeah.
Holes, of course.
And Holes, yeah.
He would maybe be a good Weissman.
That or the guy, the inconceivable guy from...
Wallace Shawn.
yeah.
Continuing in the long Hollywood tradition of Jewish actors playing Nazis.
True.
Whew, shall we get back into it?
No time like the present.
She's still reading about Kekulé.
The whole book talks about him. It's a really like a lot in depth.
Who knew you were a Kekulé head all along?
Who knew?
Oh, Friedrich August? Oh, I know Friedrich August.
I just really thought, I know this book I read like several times in graduate school, and it was so ingrained in my mind that I just really thought this was common knowledge. I was like, yeah, they'll know about Kekulé.
Kekulé? The Von Straditz Kekulés?